Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has a golden dragon bloodline. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Dragon of Time and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Dragoon, bare your swords and fight. He couldn't believe it, he just couldn't. A young blonde teen male of 16 years of age, wearing a ruined neon orange jumpsuit, gazed at his chest where there was a gash, pouring out his life's blood. He raised his eyes to meet the blank mask of the fake hunter nin that now held a bloody kunai. The same kunai that had moments ago began to descend upon his teammate, Sasuke Uchiha. The pain was too great. He couldn't speak, his mouth would not move. He creaked his neck around as best he could and focused his eyes on the downed comrade that he had just protected. Live long Sasuke. Those were his last words, his final lamenting words for a world he was leaving behind. Naruto Uzumaki then fell upon his left arm and rolled to his side, the life that so often filled his deep crystal blue eyes, slowly slink away for eternity. Sasuke Uchiha watched in shocked silence as the body of his teammate began to pale, as all his blood dripped rapidly to the ground. He did not move as his eyes moved from his dead teammate towards the hunter nin that shook his head, he had true potential, what a waste. The man was dropped next to him. Zabuza Mamachi glared at the hunter nin and said, so you only killed one Haku, dropping an unconscious silver-haired man next to Sasuke. I swear you are getting soft. Anyway, Kakashi wasn't that much of a challenge after you know how to get around the Sharingan. Moments later yet another Zabuza appeared behind Sasuke, holding an unconscious Tazuna and a struggling Sakura, who immediately entered into a state of shock as she spotted her dead teammate. And of course, these two were absolutely no problem. Before anyone could say a thing, Kakashi began to stir as a clapping noise filled out the immediate area. I must admit I am impressed. Zabuza, the original, turned to where the clapping had come from, revealing Geto with a small army of thugs. Shut Geto, all I want is my pay and I will be on my way. You see, about that, somewhere else. Naruto opened his eyes to stare in amazement. There is no way that this is hell. There stood our favorite blonde, floating in what appeared to be a blue sky, with few clouds, stretching in every direction. Why would you be sent to hell, young one? You have done no wrong. Naruto turned around and came eye to eye with the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, all minus one of course. Wearing a black kimono that hid her body completely from view, a woman stood with a pale face, possessing long white locks that stretched down to the nape of her back. Her face was curved and slightly pointy. But what got his attention were her desert sand-colored eyes that added some sort of exotic appeal. The smile on her face as he slightly began to blush only grew wider as she said, even before you say anything, another person's sins will not be placed upon another soul just because they are connected, even in the slightest way. You will not pay for the demon's sins, for it will pay for them itself. As if there had been an unseen signal, Naruto felt a sudden drain upon his spirit. As he watched a red sphere separated from his stomach area and floated to a point slightly ahead of him. A sudden roar of intense pain assaulted his ears. Two glowing red eyes appeared within the sphere. Below it, opened a hole, which was filled with intense flames and even more screams, as if millions suffered pain and calamity. A skeletal hand suddenly lunged out of the burning flames and plunged into the red sphere. With some struggle that lasted a few short seconds, a ghostly image of a fox slowly was pulled towards the burning pit. Suddenly it was over, for with a fierce cry of despair, the fox was yanked into the flames, the hole to the flames shutting behind it. For its crimes the beast is sent to the flames, all is well for starters. Naruto did not say a thing but remained quiet, gazing at the place where the fox had vanished from. The woman dropped her smile, replaced with a look of anger. You still feel guilty? For the sins of a murdering beast? How can you fellas such as beyond me, boy, but know this, you are no demon, nor will you ever be, so snap out of it. She smacked him with a smack that sounded like a loud thunderclap. The boy's blue eyes refocused as a red mark appeared on his face. He smiled, a true pure smile, and said, thanks, I guess I needed that. No problem, but now to the reason why I summoned you here. You are not taking me to heaven, but aren't I dead? You are Naruto-kun, but you will not go to heaven, but you will return to the world of the living. Naruto let his jaw drop, but was unable to say a thing as the woman continued, only to shock him even further. I am Kami, goddess of the world you and your race live in. Long ago I was not. Naruto interrupted and said, what do you mean? Let me explain, so don't interrupt me. Where was I? Oh yes, long ago I was not the god of this world, I was merely a spectator awaiting my chance to rule over a world. Many millennia after this world had died under its first god, it was ready for a new one. I petitioned the council, the ruling group over all gods, to be given custody of the world. It was granted to me as I was the only one requesting it. As such I was able to mold this world as I saw fit under a set of guidelines. Skipping all the pointless details, I created the 9 Biju as guardians for the world to protect it against those who sought to end it early or to control it themselves. My idea did not work as you know, and they themselves tried to conquer the world, but one by one, they were taken down by mankind. I brought you here, child, for one reason. More like two, but the second one is more of a private thing. Naruto tilted his head, missing the look of longing that appeared on Kami's face for a brief instant. He asked, what is that reason, the Kami-sama? I doubt that it's for tea and crumpets. Kami smiled gently and responded, I'm getting to that. In this world's past life, there existed thousands of races, but only 3 were considered dominant. They were humans, winglies, beings like humans, but they could wield immense power and had white wings on their back, and dragons. Sadly, the winglies let their power get up to their heads, causing them to be selfish and greedy, enslaving the world in a blanket of tyranny. After millennia of suffering, mankind had enough. They rose up in a turbulent storm of rage and fought of their chains, with the help of Emperor Diaz and the dragons, along with their chosen knights, the Dragoon. Millions died on both sides, but in the end, the winglies ceased to exist. Naruto tilted his head and asked again, why am I here? Kami nodded, I am giving you a mission. Destroy the other 8 Biju and bring peace to this world. To do this I have received permission by the god that ruled over the world of the Dragoons to revive the Knights of the Dragons in you and begin a bloodline with you at its center. The strongest Dragoon will be the Crown Head, the strongest out of all 8 branches. Naruto nodded and said, it would be an honor to start a clan for you, Kami, but people like the council in Konoha will try to control me. What would you have me do then? Not to worry, all will work out for you, Naruto. But the only problem you will have is being with multiple women, I presume. Yeah, that is what. Wait, multiple women? The grin upon Kami's face only grew as she began to talk again. The 9th Dragoon belonged to a very picky dragon, so picky that it did not even choose a knight to join the ranks during the dragon campaign ages ago under Emperor Diaz. She was known as the Golden Heart Dragon. Possessing power over all the elements, she was the strongest dragon in the known world. But even with such power, she never had the desire to rule the world, just to protect it. She died after many millennia of sleeping, waiting for the right one to wield her power as her knight, but the person never came. The closest one to ever come close to gaining her power was one known as Dart. But due to several problems in his heart, he never was able to get closer. Yet even in death, she wished to be able to lend her power to one worth heart, and she found Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son to the Yellow Flash Minato Namikaze and the Crimson Death Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto's face was blank as the last 2 names registered, so he said, my father, my own father, was the one who damned me to that torture. Kami nodded slowly, her cheer gone, and replied, he regretted not even a second after he entered to heaven, for his soul was too pure to remain in Shinigami's stomach. Also did not help that Kushina nearly beat the crap out of my brother, so she could just beat her husband for doing that to you. Yeah, well, after that and seeing the people that he trusted nearly kill you, he begged to me to revive him, so he could protect his son. I refused, for that is against the rules, passed by the God's Council, but then did the Golden Heart Dragon enter and give us the ultimate solution. Naruto said with a questioning look in his eyes, make me her knight. Kami nodded as a bit of her cheer came back. She said, I have never seen a heart so pure, a heart so strong that not even the will of all the gods combined would move, a heart to last the ages in the memory of history and legend. He will be my knight whether the gods will it or not. Naruto could not help but let a smile adorn his face, a true smile that reflected his happiness at being acknowledged for who he was. And Kami continued, that is why we kept Kyuubi's power. You see, when the god of this world's past allowed to recreate the dragoons, I had to revive at least one dragon, and from there more dragons would be born. But to revive a beast of such power would require me to use an enormous amount of power. Even more so, for the Golden Heart Dragon. Thankfully, I was able to get you here, and now you know what happens. Naruto nodded and asked, but do I have to have multiple? Yes, no choice. But none of that either. But I said you have to have multiple women, for a heart such as yours is too great to only let one woman have. Besides, how in the world would you be kept calm with that demonic stamina of yours if I didn't help you release it the right way as pleasing women around the world? Naruto's brain was beginning to crash, but it used so fully Akami's next words, including myself, I am a woman with needs, you know. Naruto felt himself blacking out, but one last phrase managed to enter his ears, we will speak again, young knight, but now, pick up your swords and fight. A single orb of light descended down from the high clouds. A pair of crystal blue's eyes, seemingly glowing, slowly creaked open. They snapped open instantly at the sight before him. He still laid where he had fallen and belled to death, but his companions were not. Surrounded by dozens of thugs, his teammates and sensei were kneeled on the ground along with Zabuza and Haku. Behind him he heard the wailing of the villagers. Quiet. Lord Gato wished to speak. A small impish man stepped up onto a stone block that had been moved. Now listen up, maggots. This land is mine and so are you. I can do with you as I wish, and you had not the right to go and try to overrule me. So now will be the end. You all will become slaves, your women will be sex toys for men around the world. But before you all leave, you see the death of your heroes after we use these two whore for ourselves." The man, Gato, descended from the stone with an evil laugh and began to make his way behind Sakura, who looked at him in fear. He moved his hands towards the belt of his pants when he noticed that his eyes were not focused on him, once holding fear, but now surprise and shock, behind him. He turned only to nearly collapse at the sight that was there before him. Dead men were not supposed to get back up. For there before him stood the supposedly dead Naruto Uzumaki, looking really pissed. He began to glow before every person's eyes, the huge gaping scar on his cheek closing as if it had never been there. "You touch her in any way," his voice sounded out, barely holding back his rage, "I'll kill you." Letting out a tremendous roar, his voice echoed sonic roar. There was no preparation. There was no warning. A huge burst of power erupted from around Naruto, knocking the shocked Konoha team to the ground, along with the two Chunin from Mizu. The thugs that were hired by Gato were thrown over the edge of the bridge into the frigid waters below, while the rest were knocked down the bridge with freighting force. The team formed Konoha and the pair from Mizu got up from the ground with stiffness and stared at their companion, who moments ago was thought to be dead, only to spread their eyes in open shock and surprise. Naruto floated off the ground by a few inches, a pair of golden wings erupting from his back. A pair of golden shoulder guards covered his shoulders, shaped like diamonds, connected to his chest plate, also in a similar golden color. A round clear diamond was above his heart, with a gold slit, making it look like a dragon's eye. His hands were inside a pair of gold gloves, while his forearms were enclosed in a set of gold bands. A set of gold pants covered his legs, open and loose, while a set of golden armor boots were tied onto his feet. A golden thick kilt was tied around his waist. A few of the thugs got up, groaning. All of them were shocked when they spotted Naruto. Gato was one of the few who was slower to get up, cradling an injured arm. Ignoring the sudden appearance of the armor, he cried, "Kill him." The thugs drew weapons varying from large swords to flails. With bloodthirsty sneers they charged at Naruto, ignoring the still shocked nins. Naruto's blue eyes were sharp and cold, like a sheet of ice, yet anyone could see that they were not as one. He raised his hands to the sky and opened them so that they could be palm up. Slowly time seemed to slow down as two golden orbs formed in Naruto's hands. Making fists, he closed them over the orbs, and thus a bright pulse of light ensued forth, ignored by the thugs. As the flash of light faded, Naruto was shown to hold onto two long medieval long swords made completely out of what appeared to be crystal. Both were gold bronze color with a vein of silver crystal running through their centers. They looked beautiful, but even the thugs knew that they were not for show. Yet, they ignored them and kept charging on, some crying out war cries. They charged at him, but they stopped as Naruto rose up into the air. From a nearby boat, the rest of the men that Gato had brought along were climbing back up onto the bridge, but they were too late to stop the force of nature that was Naruto. Naruto seemed to reach a predetermined height before he tensed up and dived. His swords had no mercy. The moment he met the first thug, his swords cut through him, leaving only bloody pieces in his wake. He moved among them like a bird of prey, using his sword to chop off limbs and cut others in half, many creaming to their deaths. He occasionally rose into the air again to give him another chance to dive down again. He apparently reached a limit when he moved back from the remaining thugs, only a few were left from the original force that had come onto the bridge. "This is the end for Gato," was all Naruto said while letting loose an enormous war cry. His swords then began to glow and he swung twice, once for each sword. An arc of intense light exploded down the bridge and came into contact with the frightened thugs, too scared to even move. What was left in the wake of such a tremendous attack was naught but pieces of what were supposed men. The most discernible piece among them was a head, Gato's head. Naruto's sword vanished into the air around him. His eyes slowly became his own. As the swords completely vanished, water exploded from underneath the bridge and washed over the carnage. Once the water was gone, there was nothing left on the bridge. Not a scrap of evidence was left. The armor faded, leaving Naruto in a ruined orange jumpsuit, which could only be called rags, exposing a lot of his skin and muscles, which turned on many on the observing woman. "We won" were his only words as his kind loving eyes shut and threw him into darkness. Chapter 2. So it begins, darkness and water join the heart. Loud noises, screaming filled the air as a huge banging noise. Naruto Uzumaki growled as he pulled a pillow over his head. Yet the noise steadily increased to the point that he was able to hear voices. "Make him give me his power, it's rightfully mine." The next one was different though, just as loud. "No, it doesn't, Sasuke. You saw what he did, if you just charged in there he will kill you." This was before a scream of pain echoed through the pillow. Not even realizing that he had moved so fast, Naruto was at the door to his bedroom, yanking the door open. There on the ground was Sakura with a red and blue mark growing on her face, specifically, her right cheek, as if she had been punched. "Dope," yelled the resident gay emo, "Sasuke-cha, give me your power, now." Naruto ignored the boy, instead kneeling next to his downed teammate. "You okay, Sakura-chan?" Nodding slowly, blushing slightly as Naruto's hand caressed her cheek gently, she said, "Yeah, thanks Naruto." Listen to me dope, give me you. He never got to finish as Naruto's fist met his pretty boy nose. Sasuke flew down the hall that held the bedrooms of Tizuna's house, crashing against the far wall with a sickening crunch. The head that possessed gravity-defying silver hair looked around the corner of the stairs that led downstairs, right next to the wall that the Uchiha had just rammed into. Looking at Naruto, Jounin Kakashi Haddock asked, was that really necessary, Naruto? Yes, the idiot hurt Sakura-chan, which is the only reason I need to beat his gay ass. Kakashi shook his head while Sakura looked at the young man before her in surprise. He stood there with his bare back towards her, wearing only boxers. His muscles seemed to ripple as his back straightened, giving Sakura the impression that he had apparently held back for years at the academy, hiding it all. Her blush deepened as she suddenly had an image of her hands running over that strong back, rubbing against a young man that looked truly like a boy, if a little short. He turned back to her and asked, come on Sakura, get up, it's wrong that your cute little butt is on the ground. She couldn't move. Her eyes were focused on Naruto's chest, his bustling six-pack with the well-built pecs and the muscles that were taut, yet not too large as if he had really worked out, like a bodybuilder. Though what did get her by surprise was that Kakashi had moved down the stairs, carrying Sasuke, and where he once stood, now stood Tsunami, Tizuna's gorgeous 20-year-old daughter. She stared at the young teen's muscled back and said with a stutter NNRT2. He turned back to the beautiful woman, and her eyes widened as the sight of Naruto's chest made her blush a very deep crimson. Sakura felt an emotion that she believed she would never feel for the blonde idiot. Was it jealousy she felt, as Tsunami eyed her teammate in a very perverse manner? Yes, Tsunami-chan. If her blush could get deeper, it did, she stuttered BB FFFSTT. It's ready? Naruto asked, with a glow in his eyes. Tsunami did not trust her voice as her black hair dropped in front of her eyes, hiding her blush, even though Naruto was as clueless as a monkey holding a banana. We'll be right down, just let me get dressed. And thus, the idiot of Team 7 walked into his room as if nothing had happened. Sakura looked at Tsunami, both sighed as pent emotion slowly leaked away. Short time skip. Naruto ate pancake after pancake at breakneck speed, never realizing that Wave never had enough supplies to make even one of the delicious fluffiness. But contrary to the beliefs of many, Naruto Uzumaki was not as stupid as many believed him to be. So he asked a group around the table, a smiling Tizuna and Inari, blushing Sakura and Tsunami, a pissed Sasuke and a porn-reading Kakashi, anybody mind telling me how we are eating pancakes when the bridge isn't even finished yet? This time, the pleasant looks from around the table were replaced with surprise and shock. Sakura was the first to speak. Naruto, you've been out for a week. Naruto blinked at his pink-haired teammate with open curiosity, as his expression basically said, what the fuck are you talking about? Kakashi put down his little orange book and said, doesn't surprise me. Was the general consensus that spread around the table as every pair of eyes focused on him. Closing his eyes, Kakashi began, there is a theory that has traveled around called blood control. Just as a paraphrase, the theory states that a wielder of a bloodline will fall under the control of his blood if he feels a very powerful emotion the moment he awakens his bloodline, usually such an emotion would be rage or despair. Sakura looked at him and asked, how can blood control someone, sensei? Kakashi opened his eyes, having the first ever completely serious expression. Even when he was going against Zabur, he did not have such a serious expression. His blood did not literally control him, Sakura, what I meant was that the knowledge of how to wield his bloodline was forced out of his blood into his mind, taking control. The knowledge though causes the mind of the actual person to be buried for a short span of time, as such they have no memory of what they did and just that they awoke their bloodline. Sasuke took an evil smirk on his face as he said, you mean he wouldn't remember the 80 thugs, Gatos counted, that he slaughtered without mercy? Every pair of eyes glared at him with rage, but he did not care, for the prick wanted to see Naruto in despair, crying in a corner and being 100% emo. But when Sasuke turned to Naruto with a smirk, only to see his target wolfing down more pancakes in restless abandon, only one word exiting his stuffed mouth, so? Tsunami asked, as Kakashi, Sakura, Tizuna, Inari and Sasuke, as the two unseen guests that stood in the corner who have up to this point been forgotten in the writing of this passage, stared in shocked surprise. But what you did was murder Naruto. Naruto had a quick response to the accusation, no it wasn't. Sakura yelled, yes it was you dumbass. You murdered them. The cries ended when Naruto stared at her with coldest eyes she had ever seen aside from the event on the bridge. His icy words rang around the room, yet he only spoke in a whisper, are you really that stupid you arrogant little? There is a difference between killing to protect others and killing just because you can. Those men probably loved the feel of the power they got when holding a person's life in their hands. What I did was kill the worthless little shit stains and hope that they now burn in the deepest pits available in hell for they have done to people. If you can accept that about this world, Sakura, that you either kill to protect or because you can, then you should quit being a ninja, for if you don't you will die before your time. With a loud clatter, Naruto dropped his chopsticks on the table and left the room, walking up the stairs. All was silent, eerie silent as his words crept into each of their hearts, even Sauce's junk piece. He is right, you know. Zabuza made himself know, wearing what he wore at the Battle of the Bridge, just with some bandages wrapped tightly across his chest. He continued, the boy is the strongest kid I know, to kill so mercilessly, yet see it as what had to be done. Many would break under that sort of pressure. And you are one to talk, I guess. Was Sasuke's quick retort as the rest of the table remained silent, Naruto's words now lost to him. Yes. I was the type of guy who killed because he could, I did not care as long as I killed something. His grey eyes not possessed a faraway look as Haku looked at her master in worry, occasionally jumping her eyes to the stairs that Naruto had climbed with a slight blush, only caught by Tsunami. Sudden thoughts entered both women's eyes as each nodded covertly to the other, a very sister plot molding in their heads. Zabuza continued, I killed wherever I went, not a shred of remorse left my soul, till I was ordered to kill a little girl to send a message to her father to keep quiet. When I was about to kill her, the little girl's eyes focused on me. I saw in them the defenseless little girl, who had done nothing wrong. He breathed, I warned the father, and he was able to move his family far away from the reach of the Misuke, and that was when I began to plan the revolt against that detested slug bastard. You can see how that ended. He focused his eyes on the team from Kenosha, yet he already knows what took me years and countless corpses to learn. He will go far, that Naruto will. Kakashi looked at Zabuza with open curiosity as Sakura voiced a question that they all wanted to ask, how far. Zabuza spoke with a level yet powerful voice, farther than any god would ever be able to achieve, for he will stand alone against the tide of fate and stop it dead in its tracks, all to protect the world and all those in it, whether he hates them or not. Naruto appeared before the table. All of them stared at him in surprise as he sat down quickly and said, sorry. No problem, Nar, I forgot to eat my last pancake. In which he did as everyone around them fell face first to the floor in a huge crash, faces imprinted on the floor and table. Naruto stood, staring out the window from his room. The rest of the team was out patrolling the village along with Zabuza, while Tazuna and Inari were out at yet another party. So why was the hero of Waves stuck indoors while everyone else was outside? His door was tapped shut with chakra-enhanced tape, the same with his window, so he could not get out. And what did he do to deserve this? Simple, pissed off the whole household. You see, Naruto loved to play pranks, and as such, when he learned the shadow clone, he began to ponder, and when Naruto thinks, things begin to explode. That is what literally happened, just not with fire, but with bright neon orange paint. Crickets chirping. Naruto sighed as he voiced, come on, it was funny. No, it was not Naruto. He snapped around to find Tsunami in a bathrobe standing at the door, which was again being closed shut behind a nervous-looking Haku, who also wore a bathrobe, by a severely beaten Zabuza, who looked at Naruto with a look that said, I'm sorry. Naruto did not want to know why he was being given such a look, and he had the painful feeling that he was going to find out. Tsunami had a look that Naruto had never seen before, the same look that replaced Haku's nervous one. You owe me something, Naruto, for drenching me in bright orange paint, Tsunami said, and ruining my favorite kimono. Haku interrupted, and that, Tsunami continued, so, you are going to pay us back, pleasantly. Naruto swallowed as he stared at both women, with the looks that he now recognized as lust, mixed with love. Naruto backed himself into the corner as the woman slowly moved forward. They lunged at the boy, Naruto leaping over them and running to the far corner of the wall, with a look of fright on his face. Leave me alone, he said with a hilariously dramatic tone. Never. Spoke the hot woman as they chased their prey around the room. The chants around the room ended in a moments of luck for the woman, for a mysterious banana peel appeared on the floor directly in Naruto's path, forcing him to slide straight into the wall, and thus did it become official. Naruto Uzumaki's near-endless luck only lasted when women were not involved. Before he knew it, Naruto had been forced onto the small bed, and his arms had been tied to the headboard behind the bed. Yu struggled and pulled against the bindings only to stop as a hand rested above his crotch. Don't even think, Naruto, Tsunami said with a look of care present in her eyes, that we only want you because you saved our lives. To reward you in one single night. She placed more pressure on his crotch, feeling him harden under his pants. Haku continued, her thoughts identical to Tsunami's, we want to reward you for the rest of eternity. You see, I see someone who has shared the pain that I have, yet never fell to the pressure, unlike I almost did. I love you, Naruto, and I see your heart, one that would let anyone in, no matter if they be human or demon, male or female, you care for all equally. I love you for the heart that calls out to me, reaching to mine that now lies in the eternal darkness of pain and suffering. My heart answers yours, two pieces of a lost puzzle finally being put together. Both Naruto and Tsunami stared at Haku, saying at the exact same time. Very poetic. Haku's only response was thank you with a large grin plastered on her face. Tsunami turned to stare into Naruto's deep blue eyes as she said, but it is like she said, your heart calls to me, and mine calls back to you, we have answered. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki, I love you as you love me, for I hear it in your heart. Naruto's eyes began to tear up as he admitted it to himself. For he had heard it to the sounds of two beating hearts, calling out to the world in sadness and pain for someone to love and cherish, someone to hold them. A heart had answered, and now they were to be as one. "Can you untie me at least?" Naruto asked innocently. Tsunami and Haku smiled and untied him. Chapter 3. The heart of gold shines true with benefits. "Come on Inari, you can do it. Just a little bit higher, just a little bit faster," yelled the resident blonde as he soared through the skies with his golden wings, beating furiously, allowing him to move side to side. In front of him flew Inari clumsily in his red armor and wings, trying to play the inventive game of tag. "Come on Dad, stop moving and let me tag you." "No. Never. I shall always win, so bring it on son." Dodging to the left as a few dots flew by him. Down on the ground, Tsunami watched her lover and fiancé play with her son. Turning around, she stood before the campsite fire, cooking up a simple stew from some wild vegetable from the forest surrounding Konoha, along with a few fat rabbits that Haku had managed to catch. Kakashi in the meantime, as they had traveled back from Wave after the bridge's completion, had been teaching the entire team more chakra control exercises. He also taught Sasuke and Sakura some more of the basic yet offensive type jutsu in his repertoire, while further helping to progress Naruto's swordsmanship as best he could, being years out of practice. Beckoning Haku over, who had previously been building the tents for the camp, while the rest of Team 7 gathered wood for the fires and water for the night. Azuna had decided to stay in Wave and help with the reconstruction of the village, as well as possibly remaining there to fish for the rest of his natural life, drinking while doing so. Just the life he wanted to live. Haku finished putting together the largest of the tents, Naruto's of course, to share with his two wives and stepson. Holding the ladle that had been in the pot close to her lips and blowing, she gave it to Haku and said, "Try this for me." Haku took a quick sip and said, "Perfect, a little bit too many onions for my taste, but perfect nonetheless." She smiled and called to the air above her, "Dinner is severed boys, get it while it's hot." Team 7 walked out of the tree line soon after, having just finished setting up warning wires and traps around the camp, hearing the announcement. Not even a few seconds after them, Naruto landed and allowed his golden armor to phase out of existence. Having suffered an immense growth spurt before leaving Wave, he had to toss the horrible orange jumpsuit, much to the entire group's glee, and changed into something even better. Now he wore a skin-tight black t-shirt with sleeveless leather vest. He also wore black shinobi cargo pants, his feet inside a pair of midnight black boots that they had found in Wave. The store had managed to keep most of its stock away from the prying eyes of Geto, so they were able to give it to Naruto at a discount, of course. On each wrist he wore simple yet strong steel braces, while his shoulders were covered in wide shoulder guards, which Inari landed on as his seat. As Naruto moved over to Tsunami, he kissed her on the lips, letting her let loose a quiet moan. Haku smiled as she watched Naruto and Tsunami kiss in a quick instance, thanking Kami that she no longer had to bend down to kiss him. The growth spurt had made him grow in height as well as mass, thus explaining how easily Inari managed to sit comfortably on his shoulder. Putting Inari gently on the ground, Naruto sat around the fire with the rest of the group in comfortable silence till Sakura spoke. "Hey Naruto, I have a question." "Shoot," was Naruto's reply. "I know that you will marry Tsunami and because of that she got your bloodline." She missed Tsunami and Haku's intense blushes as Naruto forced down his, if barely. But that doesn't explain how Inari managed to get the same ability. Naruto's eyes took a faraway look as he rested his chin on the palm of his hand. After a moment of silence he spoke. "I think is because Inari messing up the kid's hair with his free hand is Tsunami's son. The connection between him and Tsunami may be what is giving him his own set of dragoon armor. Then why not affect Azuna in the same way? The only thing that I could come up with was that he is set with his role in life, or it could just be that he is too old to be able to get a proper hold on his chakra." "That is a good point, but what about? Would you please shut the fuck up with the theories so we can just eat in peace?" "God damn it all," yelled an irate and pissed off Sasuke. A sudden sense of doom descended upon the little camp. Kakashi, Zabuza, Naruto, Inari stepped back slowly as a sudden amount of pressure appeared out of nowhere. Sarutobi hears inside as his left hand massaged his aching brain. Across from him stood Team 7 who were mostly intact, except one battered and bandaged Sasuke. "Okay," started Sarutobi, "let me get this straight. Naruto awoke a powerful bloodline and managed to protect you ladies," pointing to Haku and Sakura, "from being wrapped by Geto and his men." Both shudder as the fear still existed within their hearts, but they nodded, if slowly. But the sorrowful look in his eyes, the Hokage continued. "Naruto then killed Geto and the rest of his thugs." After a few days of recovery and repairs done to the bridge, during which Naruto proposed to both Haku and Tsunami, who both accepted into being his wives. Both women nodded, sporting identical blushes, a giggling Inari hugging his stepdad's leg with a bright smile. The Hokage sighed. "What's wrong, Gigi? When you sent the original report of what happened, I was forced to tell the council of what happened to you, Naruto. They called a council meeting as soon as you arrived through the gates. They may try to force you to impregnate various other women, as well as trying to force you to leave Tsunami and Haku. It's good that you used the word try then, was Naruto's reply, an evil grin promising pain adorning his face. For some innocent reason, the look seemed to make the Hokage's day all the better. Council chambers. The civilian council glared with untold hate in their eyes at the blonde member of Team 7, standing in front of the entire council. The civilians sat on the left in rows in stadium seating, the ones of lesser rank and importance occupied the lower tiers, while those in the higher tiers were the more important ones, such as several key merchants and the village elders. This was the left side of the room. On the right, there was just a single row where all the clan heads sat gazing passively at the blonde and his heavily bandaged teammate, Sasuke. Directly across from the doors that led to the room sat the Hokage behind a simple desk. Behind him was a massive window that showed the entirety of the Hokage mountain. Now as to why Sasuke was bandaged up, let's just jump into the tale, shall we? Now why, scowled one of the village elders from the highest tier as Uchiha-sama bandaged up D-boy. Did you beat him so? Accusingly. No, why would I do that, Naruto said to the woman. Taharu-san was that this dumbass got himself beaten by 3 women. Various elements of the civilian council, currently called ass-kissers, began to growl, coming with what they thought were ingenious ideas to get back at these women when they found them only to be stopped in their tracks. Pissed off women, that is. Never curse in front of a little kid while surrounded by his mother, second mother and a girl who just wasn't going to let that slide, fangirl or not. Naruto added to the sentence, shaking his head with a small smile. The very same ass-kissers began to quail in fear as staring at the Uchiha with no sense of regret, for at some point each had felt the anger of a woman and paid the very painful price. Time freeze. Thus came the silent rule, one that was instinctively acknowledged by men, and if it wasn't, they would learn of it the most painful way. Rule number 1 of men's laws. Never piss off a woman, period. Now once more back to the story. Time to frost. Sarutobi had a grin plastered onto his face that revealed how happy he was at the concept of the Uchiha receiving a humility lesson. Now he said, Naruto, Kakashi reported that you awakened some sort of bloodline. Can you show us, please? Also, Uchiha-san, please leave the room. The bandaged teen refused to move, staying firmly in place as he stared at the Hokage with eyes that stated his refusal. That will though left soon after with only a few words that were muttered from the Hokage's mouth. Do I need to get Sakura, Haku or Tsunami in here? He was gone a few seconds after, the laughter of the Hokage, as well as the clan heads, hounding his heels. Now, Naruto please. The blonde bowed his head. The council stared in awe as a gold aura began to form around Naruto, soon solidifying into his armor and wings, slightly floating off the ground. He said to the Hokage, there you go, sir. None could speak, as they were still in awe at what they saw, yet others also saw the power, the ability of destruction, their doom if they tried anything. So for once in the history of Konoha, the civilian council had the wisdom to stay silent. Shikaku Nara, clan head of the Nara, spoke first, having rested his head lazily on the table in front of him. A bloodline like this seems too powerful, like it needed a price of some sort. Naruto let his armor fade and said to the man. It did. At this the entire council sat just a little bit straighter, just a little bit more attentive. Sarutobi swallowed the bile that had built up, nervous to what was about to happen. Lifting his sleeveless shirt to show a toned stomach with what appeared to be the appearance of a six-pack, he began to focus chakra. As he did so, he never saw the blush that appeared on the face of Tsume Inyazuka, matriarch of the Inyazuka clan, as well as one other, a civilian councilwoman. Tsume cursed inside her mind, her eyes unable to leave the toned muscles of the teen's stomach, her eyes roamed further up, getting an eyeful of what could only be an even better built chest. Thoughts entered her mind that should not have been there, at least those that were aimed at one that was decades younger than her. These visions set her insides on fire, heart pumping, and a certain spot between her legs began to react. Tsume could feel her scalp begin to get moist as sweat began to from, making her shining brown hair stick to her scalp. She could feel her nipples becoming hard on her breasts, though no man could tell due to her formal kimono which gave nothing away. Yet her eyes did not stop till she noticed what was happening on his stomach. Nothing. There was a soft clatter, a pipe falling out of the Hokage's mouth hitting the top of his desk. The clan heads held their breath as time slowly edged on, with nothing happening. Many on the civilian council were staring with stupid looks on their faces, not knowing what was going on. The elders though, also held their breath, waiting for something. Nothing. Did you really, oh my god? Said the stunned old man. Yeah, I did, Naruto said slowly, a smile growing on his face. Kyuubi is gone permanently. The silence was unnerving till the Hokage asked, gone, where to? Hell. The council stared in shock and sudden recognition. You mean to say, started a familiar pink-haired woman who appeared to be in her early 30s wearing a white kimono that hid her features from the surround councilmen, her pale skin glowing in the light that entered from the window behind the Hokage, her full red lips sporting a kind and loving smile, that the demon is gone, not just sealed away. Naruto looked at her and was surprised as his eyes met hers. They were green just like his teammates, but he ignored for a brief second. Nodding, he continued as he turned to the Hokage, letting his shirt fold back into place to activate the bloodline, a sacrifice a great import of great power and worth was needed. So I just happened to have something lying around and there you have it. The council stared in surprise till the familiar woman spoke. I told you that the boy was no demon. Did you listen? Nu drawing out the last word childishly. Be silent, Asiya, you have no right to speak her, worthless woman. Just like this demon's mother, you just happen to be a worthless whore. He stopped, feeling the cool edge of a tip near his throat. Never speak about any woman like that. Naruto's voice, having moved closer to the man as soon as the first half of the sentence had been finished, entered the ass-kisser's ear, especially not my mother, is that clear? Pressing harder with the kunai in his hand. The man did not even nod, he just dropped in a dead faint. The newly revealed Asiya looked at Naruto with a small smile and said thank you, Naruto-san, for all that. Tsume nodded, also bearing a small smile, unnaturally quiet. The Hokage nodded as well and said, well then, I guess we can tell the village now. No. Came Naruto's quick reply. But, Gigi, let it die. The past is behind us and let it stay that way. Besides, telling everyone now would only cause problems for everyone, especially me. I just hope that those that do know would just let the past die instead of just letting it fester. They also would probably not believe you, I know that they wouldn't believe me. With that, Naruto began to walk out of the room, but was stopped by the Hokage. Naruto. Spinning around, the teen caught the scroll that had been tossed to him. This is yours, Naruto, what should have been yours from the beginning. Also, I will need you to come back and have your picture retaken. The blonde tilted his head to the side, a small smile present, remembering his face covered in paint when he first took the picture. Your name is being changed to what it should have been. You are dismissed, Namikaze. Naruto shrugged and left the room, closing the door silently behind him. Alone, Naruto walked down the deserted street, the sun setting behind the Hokage mountain. Upon his face, a thoughtful look was exposed as he stared at the cobbled street. The irony, he thought to himself, goddamn the irony. Looking to the mountain in the distance, Naruto couldn't avoid the smile that soon grew on his face. The man I worship the most just happens to be my father, what a coincidence. Turning away from the sight, Naruto began to make his way to the noble district in his new home, the Namikaze estates, or would have if he did not have a saving people thing. Of change, 3 men stood over 2 young girls, both possibly 10 years old. The look down on her, strange marks present on her cheeks, looking like deep red triangles, upside down. She sat against the wall of the alley where this was all taking place. The other girl was on the ground, a bruise on her face, crying silently. Both were surrounded by what remained of their clothes, completely in the nude before their attackers. Well, look what we have here. 2 young little girls, offering themselves to us guys. What should we do with such an offer? Said one, smiling lecherously. The 2 girls, the one that was standing having moved over to the other, stared with fear as the men moved closer and closer, menacingly. This is sick. The men stopped and snapped around quickly, pulling out hidden knives as they faced the sudden intruder upon their fun. The young girls on the other hand had started to cry silently at what was happening. Get out of here, we are just having fun, one said. The rest began to cackle maniacally, putting their knives away and turning to face their targets, never hearing the steps or the sound of moving steel. You stupid worthless piece of mother dog shit. How could you just leave her somewhere? Was all that could be heard at the Inuzuka compound. Relax auntie, everything is cool, came a male voice. Cool. Cool. Nothing is just cool, you stupid fuckwit. Anything can happen to my little baby and if it does it will be your ass, Kiba. Spoke a woman violently. The boy, Kiba Inuzuka, proud member of the clan and self-proclaimed alpha male hotshot, cowered in fear with a black eye personally delivered from his aunt, the twin sister of his own mother, Tsume. Said mother spoke, please Anya, his punishment falls to me, you know that. But my baby will be found, the search dogs are outscoring the city as we speak. And you are in some really deep shit, Kiba, really deep shit. Yes mom. To the side, a younger version of Tsume Inuzuka stood, staring down at her brother. Her name was Hana Inuzuka, heiress to the clan seat right after her mother. As beautiful and smart as her mother, all she could do was shake her head at her little brother, dumb little shit that he was. Just like dad, what a waste was the main thing going by her thoughts. She stood silently as her mother berated Kiba when the door was suddenly knocked on. I'll get it. She moved towards the compound gates as the knocking became more urgent. Relax, I'm coming. She opened the door. Back to Kiba, Tsume and Anya, as the 2 older women got closer and closer to the downed male, his pup Akamaru sitting a short distance away, his paws over his eyes. If even a hair is harmed on her, Kiba, you are really gonna wish that cheating, worthless excuse of a father of yours never existed. Mom. Aunt Anya. I need you here now. Both women ran to the door before the line even reached their ears. They stopped in shock as they saw who was at their door. Naruto Namikaze stood, his cape wrapped around 2 little girls that were holding on to him for dear life. Sia. Mommy. Naruto let the little girl go, revealing that she was actually wrapped in half of his cape as she leaped at her mother, both collapsing to tears on the floor. Tsume smiled at Naruto kindly and asked thank you, but what happened? His one smiling face grew suddenly still and bleak, a red tinge Tsume recognized as rage showing on his skin. Let's just say that sick bastards like them will not survive the night. I think I stopped when these ladies wanted to go home, motioning over to the little girls. Their state of dress suddenly became apparent to Tsume, along with the meaning of her words. Before she was able to say anything, the other little girl said I want to go home. Naruto was quick to reply oops, got to get her home fast. Do you know the way to the Hyuga compound, Tsume-sama? She shook her head. It would be better if they came here, that way she can be a bit more presentable. Hana, yes mom. Go inform Hiashi that we have his daughter safe and sound and that the bastards that dared to hurt her are now burning in hell or soon will be. But the slight noise she was gone. Come on, let's get them dressed, Tsume said, motioning with her head towards the house. As she walked, Naruto couldn't move his eyes from the way her behind moved, seriously thinking that the beautiful woman in front of him was doing so on purpose. A short while later, both little girls were dressed in simple plain kimonos, Sia clinging to her mother as if she would disappear at any moment. The sound of rushed feet soon reverberated through the halls. A tall man wearing a fancy white kimono nearly broke the doors down, followed by a shorter woman who stood tall behind him, wearing a large jacket with blue slacks. Her hair was short, ending at the base of her skull, a nice dark blue color that only helped bring out the pale lavender color of her eyes. Her posture was relaxed yet very tense as she walked in behind the man. Daddy? Hinata. You're here. My sweet child, thank Kami you are safe, the man, now identified as Daddy, said, kneeling on the ground to meet his little girl that charged at him. Naruto smiled as Hinata joined the little family hug and began to walk out the door before Hiashi noticed him. Too bad that as a dad a simple little fact like him being there would be ignored. Naruto-san, why? He said I haven't been the best person to you for a long time. Naruto did not turn nor did he stop, but he did respond as he left the room. I can't hold a grudge against a child for the actions of their parents. Besides, he vanished from their natural sight, Hinata snapping to look at him with an intense blush. What those bastards wanted to do was just sick. In the distance, the sound of a shutting door reverberated through the silent and tense halls. Next morning, Naruto walked around the busy streets, many sending him glares that he mostly ignored. What he did not expect was to get attacked by two little figures that suddenly burst out from the crowd around him, successfully tackling him to the ground. Sia, don't charge off like that, said the woman who Naruto had just seen the day before, holding her daughter, as if her life had depended on it. Hanabi, leave Naruto alone, came Hinata's strong voice. No. Both girls said instantly, not letting go of their little holds on his legs. Naruto let out a laugh from the ground and said don't worry, it's not that bad. He got up with help from Anya and Hinata, each grasping a hand to help pull him up. Both girls refused to let go of him, their arms wrapped around his legs. So everything turned out alright, Naruto asked, looking at both the ladies in front of him. Anya smiled and stretched her arms, making her shirt tight against his skin. Naruto did his best, but he did notice that her breasts were bigger than average, but he only cast a quick glance as to not get caught. Just a long night. Tsume told me what she thought happened to Sia, that it was really hard to sleep. Kept waking up and running to her room making sure she was there. I eventually gave up with not finding her there and just stayed up. Naruto had a sad look on his face. Sorry that I couldn't stop it before it happened like it did. Anya replied, shut up. You saved their lives and that is good enough for me. Hinata hugged Naruto with a blush on her face and said she's right. At least you got there. There is the chance that many saw what was happening and just walked away. You stopped and said something. You saved their lives and their sanity. That is better than what many would have done. Some of the sick bastards were probably those who asked to join them. Naruto fought to his best to hold his blush, feeling two pillows being pushed into his chest. Large, expansive, squishy pillows. A voice said from behind him, I thought you had to see the Hokage about something. Tsunami stepped next to him and asked, oh, sorry, did not mean to interrupt. Staring at Hinata with a suspicious look. This is Anya, Sia's mother, and Hinata, Hanabi's older sister. You know, the girls that I told you about last night. Tsunami smiled and stretched out her hand. Hi, I'm Tsunami, this bloke's poking Naruto with her elbows, fiancé. One of them at least. Hinata and Anya's eyes narrowed dangerously. Before he could explain, Tsunami interrupted, let me talk with them, dear, you have that meeting with the Hokage. And remember, dinner is at 6 o'clock. Don't be late. He sighed and answered, yes dear. I trained you well. No you did not. This is my instinct protecting me. Before Tsunami could make an intelligent response to his comeback, Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke, leaving two logs behind, each being held by a little girl. Scene break. The Hokage looked at Naruto, standing at attention before him. I heard about what happened. Naruto did not react, just calmly replied, yes sir. The assailants were found this morning. Two bled out few hours before being found, the other two barely survived. Naruto remained silent. The Hokage nodded and said good job. This caught Naruto what? The old man smiled good job. Scum like that deserved what you gave them, anyways. The old man continued after a short moment of shuffling through paper on his desk. Team 10 has requested reinforcements. They are few days south, at the Coro village. The village was suffering a small thug problem that was not so small. So you are being sent along with Team 8 as Sasuke is away on clan business and Sakura has recently conjured the flu for some unknown reason. You leave in 30 minutes. Sir. Naruto saluted, the old man never noticing the younger teen's evil smile. In a few short moments, Naruto stood at the gate, watching as teammate came up to him. Kiba seemed to be limping with their sensei, Kurenai if he remembered her name correctly, following close behind. Shino walked next to and excited-looking Hinata. Naruto waved, Hinata waving back. But the small puff, Haku appeared next to him wearing the same outfit she wore on the bridge and wave, a leaf headband proudly tied to her forehead. She kissed him with a lecherous smile, gave him an envelope. Tsunami she said if you don't come back in one piece she will kick you ass like only a mother can. Naruto began to panic. With a smile Haku vanished with if you don't get hurt, well you get rewarded. Naruto now began to panic and get turned on at the same time, if it were ever humanly possible. It only got worse when Hinata got close to him and whispered to him Tsunami and Haku both approve of me and Anya. Without a word from Naruto his blush intensified to ripe tomatoes levels, receiving a clueless glance from the males of the team, a glare from Kurenai, Naruto turned so that teammate would not notice his little problem. All Hinata did was giggle. Kurenai stood in front of the 4 genin and said you know the mission, provide support to Team 10 and make sure that they get home. The last count we had was that they were only a score, but the report that came with the request said there were easily over 100 thugs, possibly more. Let's do this right and not come home with body bags. But that solemn word the team left the gates. Chapter 4. Dragons make the best fried chicken. Ino Yamanaka was not having a good day. Scratch that. She was not having a good week. This regular little C-rank mission had to be the easiest of all C-rank missions. Just go out to this village in the middle of nowhere, alongside a major river in the region, and clear out the camp of thugs that were causing too much trouble. Simple, to the point, easy, get in, get done and go home. But, of course, there had to be more than just, what was it again, ah yes a score of thugs, maybe a little less. What did Team 10 of Konoha Genin find instead? A camp with more than 100 thugs, all armed with very sharp pointy objects, with the occasional blunted yet heavy piece of crap, the last few were their own words. Then when they showed up, Team 10, consisting of the ever-eternal goddess Ino, as she referred to herself, the lazy smart-ass Shikamaru Nara and the excuse me, big bone black hole, Chouji Akamichi, began to have their asses kicked by mere thugs. To their defense, there were a lot of the bastards. Her sensei, Asuma Sarutobi stood behind her, pushing the attacking thug back, his trench knives dripping blood. In the distance, the retreating civilians her 2 teammates a short distance in front of her. Though Asuma yelled at her I can hold them here go. She would have stepped further away from her sensei, if not for the little fact that someone had eaten a banana and not thrown away the peel, and being that some kind gentleman was not polite enough to step on it before her, she had the honors of landing on her ass, because of the greatest cliché present in the universe of clichés. Sad, so very sad, and to only add to her ever-growing list of problems, Asuma missed one thug who worked his way around by accident and got behind him. Seeing Ino on the ground, the ugly son of raised his sword as he moved closer, Asuma not even realizing that there was someone approaching his student. Ino did though, and her life flashed before her eyes. All the times that Sasuke told her to shut up. All the times that Sakura called her a pig. All the times that she fell over and refused to get back up on her own. All the times she had belittled others just to get a laugh. All the times that she had thrown out food because she wanted to be thin. All the times that she had bought shampoo over real necessities. All the things that needed to be added to list in hope of tormenting others. She sweat dropped. Her life sucked. The man lifted his sword with a gruesome smile. Ino snapped her eyes shut, waiting for the bite of the steel's edge. It resounded through the area, above the screams of the dying, above the screams of the fleeing women and children, above the sound of clashing steel. The resounding sound of hungry steel meeting the soft flesh of the human body. Ino sat there, waiting still, not moving. Slowly, she opened one of her dark blue eyes to gaze up at her attacked, to just snap it open in shock as the man stumbled back, dropping his sword in the process, a kunai wedged just above his heart. He raised his head, letting Ino see the pain and surprise that the man obviously felt. He soon began to walk forward, slowly, veering side to side, ominously reaching his hand that was not clutching the kunai at Ino, with a begging look in his eyes. She couldn't move, even as he stepped closer and closer, even as his hand closed around her throat. Damn it, you really are a stupid blonde Ino. The thug flew back as a kunai entered his head, letting go of Ino's throat. Ino snapped around and stared as a man she had a feeling that she knew stepped forward and stopped alongside her. Staring at the blonde teen that was a head or so taller, the girl clad in a purple skirt with a matching top, standard shinobi sandals, her ankles wrapped in bandages firmly around her ankles, the paled-skinned girl decided to say the first thing that came to her mind. "Who the fuck are you?" The man looked at her with a twitching eyebrow. "You really don't know who I am?" Ino narrowed her eyes at the man before her, ignoring the body that flew over her head with a huge slash across of its chest over their heads. Distantly she heard her sensei yell a little help here people. "Are you listening? Hello?" Blue eyes, blonde hair, goofy smile that appears out of the blue, why does this all ring a bell? Was a string of her thoughts as she crossed her arms and closed her eyes. So ignorant of the situation, she did not notice the man shake his head and draw another kunai and move towards Asuma, followed by another group of blurs. "Who are you, stranger? I've changed. God damn it all, that girl is the real definition of a stupid blonde." Was Asuma whining as Naruto joined the fight along with teammate, quickly driving back the many thugs in front of them, Naruto, Asuma and Kurenai, doing most of the killing, while the other genin incapacitate every one of their targets. Naruto had a serious look on his face though that is not the issue. "She is not Ino." "What?" Asuma hollered out, "That is a load of bull. Tell you what, we make a bet. You win, you can name a condition that is reasonable and within the law, the same if I win. Deal?" "Deal." A short moment later, the thugs ran in retreat, leaving their dead and wounded behind. Scene change. The two genin teams sat in an empty house, long since abandoned, all of it was bare, the white paint beginning to peel off. Sensei was the prominent baby voice of Ino, "Why is there no water to take a shower? I must look good for Sasuke-kun." "Shut up. I told you that damage to the house's pipes prevent that." "But why?" Came the baby whine again. "Ino? What the fuck do you want?" Clang. There stood Hinata, holding a stainless steel pot that Chaoji had brought with him, with a new design of Ino's face implanted on it. "Hey, that was an expensive pot." Chaoji hollered. "I'll get you a new one." "Okay." The rest of the onlookers could not help but laugh at the situation. Asuma was the first to break from his laughs. "So Naruto, he said you mentioned that this wasn't Ino, why do you say that?" "Simple," he said, moving over to the young girl on the ground. "These seal right here." Pointing to a place on the back of her neck, the Konoha group could see that where her neck met her back there was a small circular seal. "How come we didn't notice that before?" Chaoji asked with a dumbfounded look. Shikamaru was quick to respond, "It would be simple to make it work, there probably is a seal out there that would prevent certain people from seeing what is there. All they would need something like a hair or blood. But why take away the real Ino?" Hinata asked. "Only those that have her would know. The only thing we can do is question this one. Asuma, would you like to do the honors?" Naruto asked. None of them noticed that Kurenai had not stopped glaring at the sensei to Team 10, rage evident in her eyes. Asuma swallowed and nodded. Next day, the tired Asuma sat at the makeshift table that was made out of various brick and planks of wood that the teams had found around the ruined house. "The Yamanaka are going to have a rude awakening," he murmured to himself, staring out the gaping hole in the wall that served as a window. "Why do you say that?" A voice spoke out. Recognizing Naruto, Asuma slowly placed the trench knives away. "Her name is Rika Yamanaka, Ino's cousin." Biba spoke up. "I remember her, didn't she drop out of the ninja program?" As the rest of the teams moved into the room. Kurenai spoke up. "No, she was kicked out for poor grades and having come really close to raping Sasuke." Naruto spoke up, "But why would someone want to replace Ino?" Biba spoke up. "Maybe cause she was too wild." Kurenai and Hinata instantly turned red. Snapping to look at the young boy with fire in his eyes, "And what is that supposed to mean?" was Kurenai's furious reply, barely kept under control. "He's right." This drew the shocked gaze of Kurenai and Hinata straight to Naruto, as well those of surprise from the rest of the silent males of the room, happy to be away from the scrutiny. "Think about it," Naruto said quickly, not noticing the look of rage on Kurenai's face, and the one of thought on Hinata's. "Ino is not one to simply bow to someone and say yes master. The day that happens, I'll eat my kunai. Anyways, her spirit is just like Kiba said, wild and uncontrolled. Whoever took her probably wanted a puppet to use in an attempt to control Sasuke or someone else. Riko was the easy one to control and took only a little to make it appear like she was Ino." There was a tense silence till an immense chakra burst ruined the solemn moment. "That did not feel good," Chaoji muttered. Asuma and Kurenai tensed. "No way," Asuma said, "this power isn't human." Shikamaru summarized this current development with the best word possible: troublesome. "I have little experience with battle scenes, so give me a small break here." The bridge that spanned the large river on the northernmost end of the village was very old, made of solid stone with blocks that must have weighed tons, all fit so perfectly that not even a piece of paper could fit between them. On the other side, a small tide of thugs began to slowly move across the bridge, almost like a limp. The genin team stood hidden among the houses at the other end, staring at the oncoming horde. "Something's wrong," Kiba said. "Kiba, just shut up and get ready, this ain't gonna be easy," came Kurenai's voice. "But, where are the dead bodies Asuma-sensei left here?" That got their attention. Their entire way here, across the roofs of destroyed homes, some caved in from lack of support, the streets should have had quite a few corpses due to the skirmish that had happened the previous day. There had been quite a few, laying in pools of their own life's blood on the cobblestones of the street, sometimes with an occasional separated limb. They weren't there anymore. Instantly, they all focused at the other side of the bridge. "A smell of blood and something else, something very foul," said Kiba with a green face. The thugs slowly approached the end of the bridge that connected to the village before stopping, all of them focusing their gazes on the ninja that stood openly at the bridge's end. Moans and groans soon escaped their lips, as if they were unable to speak. Though Kami spoke Hinata, her Byakugan fully active, shaking in disgust and fear. "Hinata, what's wrong?" Never breaking eye contact with the line of men on the bridge. Before she could answer, Naruto spoke up. "Please tell me that someone knows fire jutsu." One particular thug moved slowly to the front, blood dripping on its chin with horrible gashes spread all across his body, opening it up like a can, internal muscles and organs visible through the gaping holes in the flesh. Ikami was all Asuman said, his mouth open wide staring up. There, atop the trees behind the small army of thugs, floated a large, really large skeleton. Surrounding its bird-like head were eerie dark blue flames, with arms that were at least 10 feet long. The hands looked to be a big mass of claws, rather than bone. Its rib cage was fully reveled, a single pulsing sphere of fire with what looked like a crystal within it, sending more flames across its bones through blue veins. It had no legs, the thing just floated there with its rib cage ending in a triangular point about 20 feet below its head. It stared ominously across the bridge before letting out an inhuman roar that shook the very ground they stood on. With matching roars, although smaller and not as powerful, the men began to charge forward at a limp, faster than any limp should be able to move. "They aren't alive," was all Hinata said, her eyes wide in fear, shaking as they watched the incoming horde. "No offense Hinata, but I think that was kind of obvious with the first bastard with holes in his chest, where lungs should be," came Kiba's horrible snappy comeback. Ignoring the comment, without removing his eyes from the approaching horde, Naruto asked, "Where is the chakra-focused Hinata?" Kiba answered, "Didn't you hear her? You dead last." "They are all dead, of course they wouldn't have chakra." "On their heads and spines," was Hinata's instant response as Kiba shut his mouth. "What? To keep them standing there must be chakra already implanted by that demon. Best guess to kill them is to damage their spine of brains permanently. Setting them on fire also helps along with ripping them to pieces." Kurenai looked at the blonde and asked, "How do you know this stuff? Or if it will even work?" Her gaze focused on the horde that was moving towards them, approaching the end of the bridge rapidly. "I'm not sure if it will work, just that it's the only idea I have got based off a book I read." "A book?" was her comeback. "Do you have any better ideas?" The silence answered was all he needed. The dead got closer and closer, some carrying weapons or other loose and heavy objects before they seemed to freeze. Looking back and forth. Akamaru stood there, his mouth open as if to bark, frozen still. "Do not worry Naruto, I just stopped time for a brief second," came a familiar voice. The beautiful woman that was Kami walked into his line of sight. Her face held a small smile that quickly disappeared. "That demon needs to be destroyed." "I got the Kami-chan, but how? It's a demon for a reason." Her eyebrow went up as she continued, "Remember the mission I gave you, to destroy the remaining 8 Biju. It would make sense that you possessed something that would help you do that." Leading him on. "The dragoon swords." "Exactly. Just as dangerous as they are to humans, they are to demon and the Biju. The only really large issue is that demons are stronger than humans, so taking them down is not going to be easy." "What is easy in life that is not worth fighting for?" The woman smiled. She leaned in and gave a light peck against his lip and soon began to vanish with a last piece of advice. "I can't wait for my turn." Time resumed. The horde was mere feet away from the edge of the bridge when Asuma let loose a massive wind jutsu that threw many of them over the bridge sides into the raging waters below. More just flew over their dead comrades that did not stop by the wind's pressure, trampling many of the fallen into bloody paste. "We need to kill that demon," Asuma yelled as the ninja moved back a bit, Choji and Kiba throwing kunai at the dead with the occasional hit to the head that made sure they would not move again, while others just ignored the pieces of metal sticking out of them. "Leave that to me, just work on staying alive." Instantly, Naruto's dragoon armor flowed into existence, surprising all of them. Kurenai couldn't help but think beautiful. Hinata's thoughts were locked behind a steel gate, for the only thing that reverberated, though the caverns of her mind were must take armor off, must take armor off, and must take armor off. Beating his wings, Naruto rose and flew as fast as possible towards the demon at the forest line. The demon saw the golden dot flying at it, but ignored it as inconsequential, that is till the dot impacted it like a steel hammer to a nail, sending it crashing into the ground with a mighty crash. "Who dares strike the might cheek?" The demon slowly rose up again, its blue eyes staring at the floating Naruto with his swords in hand. "You overgrown chicken," Naruto spoke out. "How dare you? I shall destroy you like the insolent little bug that you are. Bring it." With a roar, the demon soared at him, swinging a claw quicker than the human eye could follow. Naruto wasn't ready, the full force of the claw impacting his side, throwing him to the ground with a loud crash, sending dust and tree limbs far into the air due to the impact. From within the falling debris, Naruto flew out, appearing to only be a golden dot that moved too quickly and slammed into Cheek only to bounce off. Shaking his head to loosen up the stars that he was seeing, he muttered, "Damn, this is not going to be easy. Your mere attacks cannot penetrate my bones, worthless scum. Prepare to die." Swinging again in Naruto's direction. This time Naruto was ready, moving above the limb as it swept underneath him. The floating demon began to sweep its arms vigorously and with little grace that allowed Naruto predict the motions and dodge, but the damn thing was fast, preventing him from getting close. Timing it right, the demon stabbed its claws in a furious attempt to nail what it believed to be a pest. Swing aside, Naruto slashed up with his right-handed blade, completely removing the demon's claw at the wrist. With a pain-filled scream, the demon grasped its wrist, which begun to ooze with blue flame that fell in globs, vanishing into the air on the way down. Naruto watched a demon bleed burn whatever it was. Did not see that coming. His curiosity was to cost him though, as a blue glow started to settle in the beak of Cheek. He did notice what was happening, as the demon opened its maw and let out a literal river of flame right on top of him. As the flames receded, the shape that was Naruto could be seen standing on the ground below, if barely. "I gotta end this now, damn it, that hurt. See, you foolish mortal, you cannot beat the mighty Cheek, I am invincible." The glow began to build up just above of Naruto's chest, both his hands focused at its side. The demon roared, charging at Naruto, readying its remaining claw. The glow solidified instantly into the size of a basketball, a deep red color flare. The sphere burst into flames, golden red in color shot. Letting the sphere of fire go, it seemed to drop down. Naruto raised his right leg and kicked with all the might that he could manage. Cheek did not even manage to dodge the speeding sphere as it impacted his face, bursting into an intense flame that spread quickly over the bones. His shrieks were deafening. Completely lost in the burning pain, he let himself drift too much to the right, completely missing the exhausted Naruto and careening into a different object, the bridge. "Of change. I'm out of kunai," yelled Hinata yelled, her piece of pointy steel impacting the neck of an undead man who had his guts on display as he dragged them around, nearly taking Shikamaru's head off. "Anyone have one I can use?" "Don't look at me, last time we nearly got close, one of the damn things nearly ripped my arm off," responded a panting Kiba. Kurenai yelled out, "I've got one." "We must relax, Uzumaki-san has taken care of it," Shino said. A heavily panting and exhausted Asuma looked at the young Aburame and asked, "Why do you say that?" All Shino did was point. The exhausted Nin watched, as if by some untold signal all the undead dropped into heaps, as if a puppet had lost its strings. There, impacting the bridge, an enormous body of fire impacted the bridge, soon followed by an explosion of stone and chakra. The Nins instantly moved their tired bodies into the surrounding ruins, large pieces of the stone bridge landing among them. With a loud bang, a piece of the bridge went through the wall with which Shino decided he would hid behind, missing his head by little less than an inch. Now is the time to worry. As the sound of falling debris stopped, the Nins of Konoha moved back out onto the body-infested streets of the now unrecoverable village. Naruto landed next to the stunned group and let his armor vanish. Seeing the unmoving bodies, both teams collapsed, Naruto leaning on a shaking and blushing Hinata, the rest lying on the ground. "There is nothing left here," said Chaoji though panted breaths. "We sleep and let the remaining know what happened," responded Asuma. "Then we head home," Shikamaru said. "Yeah," was the collective exasperation. "But I have got to make one last comment," Kiba said. "What's that, Kiba?" "Dragons make a mean fire giant chicken." Chapter 5. Threats in the shadows. It had been a long and slow journey home for the Konoha ninja, exhausted over the battle that had happened just 4 days ago. Behind them, a tired Rika walked complaining the entire way. "Why not carry me? My feet are too soft to walk with. Would you please just shut up?" hollered Shikamaru. "But why?" Clang. Taoji held in his hand a cast iron pan, with a recent decorative touch of Rika's face clearly visible on the underside of it. "Now the Yamanakas owe me 2 things. Hinata slowly spoke up, trying to hold her giggles, "But Chaoji, I damaged your other pan." "True, but you did it to shut this stupid blonde up, so I consider it to be an act of mercy on us moderately intelligent people." "I hear," the Kiba yelled out, pulling earplugs that had been in his ears most of the trip. "Thanks for these, Naruto. Why do you have them?" "For the emergencies that involve fangirls within a 5-mile radius." "Seriously?" was Kiba's surprised response. "Yep, when there is a fangirl or fangirls within a 5-mile radius you can't hear practically anything." "But wouldn't Rika be a fangirl? I could still hear stuff from her damn annoying mouth." "Did you put chakra into them?" "No." "Then there is your problem." "Fuck." The exhausted ninja laughed as they moved closer to the village gates, the Chunin guards waiting attentively. After being cleared by said guards, Asuma turned to the genin and said, "Get home and get some rest, I will manage the debrief. There is the chance that the Hokage will want you there to confirm what happened." "I will go with you, Asuma, my home is on the way anyway," said Kurenai. Good night then sensei, Asuma-sen was all Shino said as he walked west towards the clan districts with Kiba waving enthusiastically behind him. Taoji and Shikamaru also began to head in the same direction, Shikamaru dragging his feet behind him, head down, while Taoji spoke high enough for the group to hear in the silent streets of Konoha's twilight. Don't worry Shika, it's not like your father is going to say anything. He's not the one I worry about. The moment I tell the troublesome woman I call mother what happened, I don't even want to think about what she will do. A surprise came to the group as the friendly pair disappeared around the corner at Chaoji's next words. Your mother is still not getting along with your dad. It's done. They separated for good this time. Troublesome father had to cheat one too many times. Kurenai scowled once the two were out of sight, a sad face appeared on Naruto's, joining the one Hinata now held. Asuma was silent, a neutral expression on his face. You don't seem surprised Asuma-san. Kurenai looked at Naruto, who stood facing Asuma with a questioning look. With a sigh, the man began to move towards the tower, the remaining three falling into step, dragging the unconscious Rika through the empty streets. You have to understand the mindset of the Nara to understand what was wrong with the marriage between Shikaku and Yoshino, his wife for the last 16 years. The Nara may be the smartest clan out there, able to think of plans that work in a variety of situations. Yet, they are some of the laziest people you will find, both female and male. So for one to be paired with a person like Yoshino, it is really bad news. You see, I am an old friend of hers, one of the few she had left over the years. She is a very energetic person, not able to sit still for too long, always looking for something to do, much like you Naruto, as she was also too energetic for her own good sometimes. Hey he hollered over the chuckles, some even were his own. Anyways, somehow, she met Shikaku. For the rest of the year, having met in late March, they dated extensively and he eventually proposed, even though he saw how energetic she was. The years went on, she kept pushing him to do more, be more. She did the same to Shikamaru because she did not want him to lose so many friends she did to not having trained enough and dying while on missions. They did not take to it well. They just wanted to stare at clouds. He turned his face away from them, a sad look evident on his face. The clan began to slowly ostracize her, even to the point that she did not sleep in the same bed as her husband, that her own son looked at her as nothing other than a person. He looked back at them, a scowl on his face, while his eyes still radiated a deep sadness. She stays with me more often than not. Yoshino is a Nara in name only, Shikaku's new wife shares his bed daily, with this, she probably will die. Naruto jumped here, as the group climbed the steps in the Hokage Tower. Why would that happen? Remember when I said that she was a lot like you? Well, she is almost exactly like you, just that she is female. Anyways, to her, family and friends matter the most. She has none of the first, he parent being dead along with her brother during the Third Great War, and there are only a few us around that still are her friends, but we are busy and can't pay that much attention to her. She is likely to wilt away, and I can't do anything about it. Time skip. Naruto ambled down a dark familiar street, thinking about the conversation that Asuma had brought forth. He clenched his fists, a snarl evident on his face. Talking to himself as he walked, and here I thought that Shikamaru was a good guy. Worthless bastard would leave his mother just because she disrupted his cloud watching time. Worthless fuck. With it he tripped over something that lay against a nearby wall stretched out into the street. Hey you stupid bum, Naruto said, get out of the street damn. The lantern hanging from a nearby porch swung in the gentle breeze, the light radiating from it revealed just who was laying the street, wrapped in a cheap cloak. The woman, as the grace that her face had revealed her to be, had tear marks running down her cheeks, her eyes tightly shut against the cold, her dark hair barely visible in the limited light as she lay on the ground. Her pale skin made her appear to be almost ghost-like. Above her right eyebrow stood out a red scar, like if some sharp object had just opened the skin. Putting his hand where the scar was, Naruto instantly retracted his hand, seeing it slightly covered with blood where his palm had settled above her scar. He did not even hesitate. Time skip again. She slowly opened her eyes. As she stared at the ceiling hanging high above, a small crystal chandelier dark with the light coming from the open window. How did I get here was her primary thought. Last thing I remember was, she instantly snapped up, tears evident in her eyes. Wait, tears starting to come down her face slowly. This isn't my house. You're awake. The dark-haired woman looked towards her left, where another woman that looked close to her age, something the woman would never reveal, with long black hair that reached to the nape of her back, wearing a simple red kimono. The woman's skin had a pale sheen to it, but present with it was a growing tan that was starting to take over. Where am I? The unknown woman asked. Namika's residence, miss, the other dark-haired asked. Yoshino Akatsuki. The other woman soon bore a scowl on her face and stated, my husband spoke about you. Yoshino tensed but fell into a relaxed surprise as the other woman continued, he told me everything that was happening with the Naras. Their loss is my opinion. I am Tsunami by the way. Nice to meet you, but why would you help me? I'm Forsaken. Forsaken. I am a used woman, not desired by her husband, broken goods that a clan did not desire anymore. Ishino slowly made contact with the scar above her eye, using a free hand that had moments ago grasped a bedsheet fiercely. This mark guarantees my death, an undesired object. Ishino looked down and began to cry as the other woman spoke. Why would it guarantee your death? No one will see me as worth it, employers won't hire me thinking I did something to the clan that I once belonged to. Other men would see me as used goods no longer worth being touched. Vendors won't sell me anything, not matter if. Ishino fell silent. The other woman sighed and stood straight. Well, that won't do here. Ishino snapped her head to look at the other woman, tears still falling down her pale face. We have, the other woman spoke, been looking for someone that would act as a financial advisor for the clan. We have heard that you are the best, Yoshino-san, as the Nara's former economical condition rose steadily while you were in charge, only to begin to fall when you were removed from your post. Yoshino's eyes began to grow in size till they matched small dinner plates. My husband and sister wives have already agreed, that is if you want the job. Yoshino couldn't stop shaking, her eyes bright with hope, but that slowly died, replaced with defeat, and she spoke coldly. What's the catch? Her eyes narrowed in suspicion. The other woman stepped back in shock before she began to scowl and shake in apparent rage. Before she could go on a tangent, the door to the room, once barely decorated with a four-poster bed, the walls painted a ocean blue color, the ceiling a dark yellow almost gold color, the window giving a great view of Konoha. The tall, blonde-haired teen man entered slowly and spoke firmly once he saw the state both women were in, wearing an open black vest with black running pants and combat boots. Relax, Tsunami, he spoke. Getting mad will not help her or you at all. But Naruto-kun. Ishino lost her suspicious glare as the teen, now identified as Naruto, looked at her and said, I heard that you suspect an ulterior motive from us. Now it was his turn to scowl at Yoshino. You would think that we are all like the Nara, too shallow to see what is really worth it. Yoshino looked down in apparent shame, but it was hesitant, the rage slowly returning to her. Naruto's voice got soft, yet did not lose its edge. I know how it is to be treated like scrap. Yoshino looked at the blonde teen, snapping her head in his direction, her eyes wide and rage quickly disappearing. Her eyes met his, Tsunami smiling to the side, a small soft smile. You, Naruto, relax. That is all you are going to do today. As well as think. I will not make you take the job, but I would like you to because frankly, he shrugged with a small smile, I know shit about finances. Yoshino couldn't help but smile at the blonde. Or keep the smile, it looks good on you. Anyways, I got to get going, my team is having a meeting and I have to get there soon. Naruto quickly kissed his fiancée lovingly before rushing out the door. Tsunami looked at his retreating back with a glint in her eye, a growing smile on her face. Yoshino also kept her eyes on the retreating back, a small smile ever present on her face as well, a fresh tear traveling down her cheek. Tsunami? The other woman looked at her and asked, yes. Can you get me those books? Team 7 and the remnants of Team 10 stood in front of the Hokage, standing at attention silently. As the elder leader's eyes went back and forth across the report, a scowl began to slowly form across his aged face. The Hokage began absolutely angered over this. Snapping the report scroll shut, the old man looked at the genin teams before him. The old man continued, I can't argue that this may possibly be a lie, as I have seen the interrogation of Rika personally. What I can't believe is that Inoichi Yamanaka would go along with something like this. Shikamaru spoke up here, intrigued. Perhaps he doesn't know, sir. Maybe other members of the clan are behind it all. Possibly. The girl spoke of a dark room that they keep Ino in, but she had been blindfolded so she doesn't know where they could be keeping Ino, but as of right now, she is alive. Excuse me, spoke Sakura, but what are you talking about? The Hokage did not say a thing, merely handed Kakashi a scroll and said, Kakashi, take Haruno-san and Uchiha-san and accomplish the tasks in that scroll. You are dismissed. Kakashi nodded and walked out of the room with a confused Sakura, dragging out the Uchiha who had not wanted to move and had for a few short moments been able to demand why the dope was to stay, but he never had a chance. The Hokage turned to his son and said, Asuma, I need you to go to the hospital with Akamichi-san and Nara-san. Asuma looked at his father and his boss, saying, you are going to send a message to the Yamanaka, maybe drag the culprits out in the process. The old man nodded. That is what I could come up with, but I do have a secondary mission for you, Uzumaki-san. Naruto gazed at the man that was his adopted grandfather and said, sir, knowing that the man would not address him with his last name unless it was important. How would you like to be paid for doing what you do best? The man dressed in a simple Jonin uniform rushed out of the room, looking frightful that he never noticed the shadow that stood in the corner, barely visible to the naked eye. Standing close to the door, the shadow leaned in slowly till voices became apparent in the room from which the door leads from. We must not allow the girl to live much longer. The shadow stiffened as the conversation that had apparently just begun. You know we can't, Anashi. We must finish the process first so that the girl can be replaced. If we do so too early and we showed up with a real one out of nowhere, after that it had been reported that she had eyes, people would begin to suspect. Don't you think that I know that, but if the doctors do an in-depth check at the hospital, then our plan will be discovered as well. The man, identified as Inashi, seemed to be moving, pacing by the amount of step that was being taken. The woman who had responded and began to speak again, all there is left is to pray that the girl survives long enough. We will have to speed up the process so that the replacement can happen smoothly. Another woman spoke, her voice much more older sounding, depicting her age spoke slowly, then we must go. The sound of grinding stone filled the room, as well as sets of hurried footsteps that seemed to be moving with some haste. The shadow gazed into the room to see a gray head disappear into a hole that appeared in the floor. Before it was able to close behind the moving elders, the shadow quickly moved in. What the shadow saw, upon reaching the bottom of a winding staircase that was lighted by candles, nearly made it lose its disguise. Littered around the room were corpses. At least, what remained of them. Along the far wall at the end of the room were piles of skeletons, of many varying sizes, black with age, and what appeared to be millions of flies flying all over them. The bodies were piled at least 4 feet, those at the bottom looked to be broken pieces of bone, mostly pieces of ribs and other large bones, with at least 2 dozen skulls, not enough to match the number of bone shards that were spread around a 8-foot radius. The second layer seemed to also be aged, their bones black as those that were underneath them. The main difference is that these were more intact, close to a dozen intact skeletons, but there were still almost twice that number that were split in half, either their bottom half was visible or the top, divided at the waist. Those that were piled up top on the other hand nearly made the shadow gag. They were black as well, but they were not bone. These were more of skin and bone, pitch black by exposure to the air, their jaws still connected by wads of flesh and dry skin. Those were the most numerous, with so many head visible that the shadow did not even wish to guess how many there were piled up. Many seemed to be naked, their skin long gone black with age, their flesh no longer visible against the outline of the bones sketched by the dry skin, as if a sick artist had just painted such a grisly image. The corpse's jaws were agape in apparent agony, only to be silenced for the rest of eternity. Paring its gaze away from the pile, the shadow focused once more on the elders that had left the room above, as his wrist made some snapping noises. 2 of the elders appeared to be in their low 60s, wearing dark red robes over their hunched frames, their face away from sight, and the long platinum hair long having lost its color. The third wore a kimono that might as well have been blood, so deep was the red. This one was hunched over in an almost 90-degree angle, her hair long gone to a silver color. All 3 gazed at the wall before them, for hanging there was a naked woman. The condition of the woman nearly made the shadow lose its disguise and seriousness, for never had he seen such of the shadow, couldn't even come up with something to describe the scene before him with. The woman hung a foot off the floor, chained with manacles to keep her hanging. There was no flesh upon those bones, every single one clearly visible through the flaps that was her skin. For that matter, there were more bones there than there must have been skin. Her breast, that should have been round and beautiful, were now empty sacks of kin that hung flat against her apparent rib cage. Her hair, that must have been blonde, was a colorless white, almost translucent to the limited light the candle provided. By what the shadow could see, her skin was as wrinkled as an older woman in her late 80s. "Don't cry, young lady," spoke the man, Inashi. "Yes, you shouldn't," said the youngest of the elder women. "You mustn't cry in front of Inachi. You are giving her your life force," after all, raising an aged hand towards the young woman's bowed head. "Ino-chan." The shadow, that now was not too far behind, could not help but see what the elders were surrounding. Upon a podium in the center of their triangle was a bright red crystal, about 4 inches high and 3 wide, and was shaped as an oval, with runes surrounding it at its base, written upon the plant stone that the crystal rested upon. A red line connected the oldest woman, identified as Inachi, to the crystal, while another went from the crystal to the young woman that was hanging off the wall, Ino Yamanaka. The shadow couldn't help but be impressed, not matter what condition her body was in, it was Ino's eyes that showed what she was really made of, as his face was moved into view by the elder. Her skin hugged her skull like a second glove, the hollow of her cheeks painfully visible, as well as the tears that were seen falling from her face. Her eyes much larger than usual, as her skin was drawn tight around her eye sockets. Yet with it all, her dark blue eyes maintained their blue color, but there was something more intense, more fierce than ever. They glowed with life even though that she was crying, unable to make the scowl that she seemed to want. "Don't worry, child," the unnamed woman spoke. "You are doing a great service to those of us that matter, to make sure that the clan prospers. We thank you for your donation." The elder barked loudly and seemed to turn to the younger woman. "Keep saying that, I always love seeing the hope drain from their eyes. It's almost orgasmic. That is just disturbing." As the 3 elders seemed to sink into their conversation, the red line began to intensify in its glow. Ino tensed very slightly and seemed to want to scream, but was unable to move her jaw. The shadow then remembered what it was supposed to do. "Locate Ino Yamanaka if all possible. Then report location so that we may retrieve her." The shadow was about to move, but then the sight drove him to adhere to the second part. If there exists the chance that she may die, get her out of there. The light from her eyes began to wane, and the troubled breathing that was very hard to hear began to disappear. The shadow reacted. Moving into the light, the elder man widened his eyes, saw the solid mass of black that moved towards them, and yelled, "Inoti, behind you." It was too late, for the woman turned with speed that should not have been possible for a woman of her age. A sword passed through her Adam's apple cleanly. Not stopping, the shadow drove a second blade through the elder's chest as the distance between them was not great. The oldest did not even have a chance to move as the free blade divided her in half at the chest, passing straight the middle of her shriveled breasts. As the head of the decapitated elder fell to the floor, the shadow turned to face the crystal as the red line faded from the elder woman to the crystal. Yet Ino remained in pain, the light continued to fade from her eyes. The shadow ripped off the mask that covered its face, revealing it to be Naruto. But the strong voice, yet quiet, "Don't give up now, Ino, just hold on." When asked about it later, Ino would never be able to respond to what drove her, but with the last bit of strength she had, she held for the crucial second in which Naruto turned and grabbed the red crystal, lifting it up and slamming it upon the podium with such force that it shattered into innumerable shards. A red tide erupted and seemed to flow by Naruto, entering every particle of Ino. Naruto spoke into his color, "I need a medic team now. The target is alive, I repeat, the target is alive. But she was in very bad condition. Bring the Hokage down here, he'll have to see this for himself. The entrance is in the Yamanaka council room. If the door sealed behind me, it should be roughly in the center, blow it open." As Naruto stood there, he turned to Ino and watched as something impossible just happened before his eyes. As the red energy faded into her body, her hair began to regain its former color. Her skin, once gray as Naruto saw closer up, became softer and less wrinkled, taking a much firmer tone, shining in the limited candlelight. Her flesh seemed to fill out, her bones no longer visible. The curves of her hips grew back, showing off and returning her glass figure with an ass that was round and large. As he watched, the light returned to Ino's eyes with intensity that bespoke of her persistence finally paying off. All the while, her breasts ceased to be flat sacks of skin and became fuller and perky, apparently about high C cup in size. Finally the energy stopped just as feet could be heard walking down the stairs. Naruto, thinking on his feet, moved towards the stairs, rushed up them, stopping the old man halfway. "Naruto, why? Just stop, Jai. Please, just stop. Are there any women with you and the medic team?" The Hokage seemed to pale at this and nodded, motioning with his hand. 2 Anbu stepped forward as well as the nurses that had come with the medic team. Naruto spoke once more, "Hope you didn't eat on the way here." One of the female Anbu, wearing a cat mask, asked, "Why is that?" The woman ran silent as they entered the chamber. The 2 nurses began to turn green as they saw the pile of corpses, while the Anbu merely stood straighter. The moment that the women slowly turned from the pile of corpses, they caught sight of Ino chained to the wall. They did not hesitate. The other female Anbu, possessing a bird mask, climbed the walls and destroyed one chain and then the other. As Bird did so, Cat stood on the wall as well and slowly took hold of Ino, gently bringing her down to level with the stretcher that was laying on the floor, the nurses checking her pulse and the rest of her body. The nurse looked to Cat and said, "She is sleeping," quite soundly, looking at Naruto, who had the grace to keep his back turned. "Why the rush? Your voice seemed desperate." He responded as he placed his hand on his shoulder, revealing a black cloth that he tossed behind him, which was caught by Bird, who draped it over Ino's nude body. "You should have seen her before I smashed a crystal that was on the podium." Cat looked at his back, impressed that he had still to turn his back. She started, "You have proof. You can turn around, you know." Naruto raised his arm, facing the Anbu and nurses, bringing down his sleeve, revealing a wrist camera usually used by Anbu for espionage missions. "All of it's right here," the Cat said. Bird picked up from there. "Let's get her out of here and then we'll see what you saw. Let go." The entire group nodded, but the moment the nurses moved to pick up the stretcher, one of the nurses muttered something unintelligible. Ino began to thrash violently, screaming loudly, her eyes darting back and forth open to their maximum width, her limbs thrashing violently, giving one of the nurses a bloody nose because she got too close. "Ino-san, relax, we are here to help you," spoke Bird, slowly moving forwards, her hands in plain view, which seemed to calm Ino down. That was, till Bird tried to pick up the nude Ino, whose frightened thrashing had thrown the cloak aside. The moment that Bird laid hands on the tense young woman, she snapped in renewed fright, her limbs thrashing once more. That Bird had to jump back not to get hit. Naruto moved in before either of the standing women, and the injured nurse couldn't move close. Softly he spoke, "Ino, it's me, Naruto." Instantly, Ino relaxed, her eyes solely focused on the blonde teen, still open widely, not having blinked throughout the entire episode. There was a shine to her skin, a light coating of sweat present all over her body. Ever so slowly, Naruto began to move towards Ino, his arms gently moving underneath her and lifting her up bridal style. Her eyes had not left his, even as she seemed to try to hide against his chest, holding on to his arms for dear life. The uninjured nurse was the first to get over her shock, quickly grabbing the discarded cloak and placed over the calm Ino, her eyes slowly getting to their normal size. The same nurse looked him in the eye. "We'll follow you to the hospital. But I warn you, do anything, understood?" With that, Naruto moved with the 4 women behind him, the injured nurse holding a handkerchief to her nose. At the middle of the stairs, Naruto met the Hokage and said, "I'll give my report after taking Ino to the hospital." The Hokage nodded, moving down the stairs as the female group followed Naruto, not saying a word. And that is when I acted, eliminating the 3 elders and smashing the strange crystal, completely brining Ino to her normal state. It had been a long night for the young man, never having left Ino's side till she had fallen asleep blissfully, if somewhat reluctantly. "This is troubling," spoke the old Hokage as he stared out the window gazing over the busy Konoha, the sun setting in the distance. With a weary sigh he sat down in his chair and slowly turned to face Naruto, whose written report sat on his desk, open to read. "The gem you were describing is referred to as the Astigos gem. Believed to be a myth, the Astigos was rumored to be able to drain the life force of any living being and transfer it over to another, the one receiving the stolen life force, taking the shape of the now drained victim. That way, the same being can live on for millennia at the cost of another. What I did not expect was the Yamanaka to actually have it, much less use such a thing. It was good that you destroyed it, Naruto. Now all there is left is to discover if there are any other Yamanaka elders still present within the clan. That won't be easy, Jai. Like you said, the thief takes the shape of the one that the stolen life force belonged to. We'll never know. The bodies can be identified, can't they?" "That is correct, Naruto. Because the death is caused in such a dark and unnatural way, the body of the victim decomposes at a majorly decreased rate. Such as, in myth at least, some bodies have been known to last for centuries at the most. The fresh bodies that were removed from down there are bound to still have some material that can be used to identify them. Because the body decomposes at the slow rate, blood should still be available in the veins within the corpse, at least what's left of them. What's left of them? According to myth, when the life force of a victim is drained by the Astigos, it turns a person's internal systems to well to mush. It does so while the victim is alive as well. That sounds painful, but is there any sure way of catching them though? They know Konoha has laws just as good as you do. Do you think there would be a way to catch them within the law? It won't be as hard as you think. With the evidence of the Astigos and the corpses, we can find them. When we identify the fresher ones, which sounds very wrong to say, we'll hopefully be able to find them. Murder is still murder. Go home, Naruto, you deserve a break." "I think I do, sir, thank you." But that Naruto left the office as the Hokage once more turned his seat to face the window, watching as the sun began to set. He murmured, "First demons, and now this. I don't even want to know what else will happen to you, Naruto, be careful." Namika's residence. The door quietly shut behind Naruto as he quietly walked into the immense entrance hall of the Namika's clan house. He did not know where his father had come up with the design, but it was beautiful. The space was simply 6 feet wide, with mirrors in bronze cases hanging from either side with hooks for where one would hang jackets and such. High above, about 20 feet, hung an immense crystal chandelier, about 3 feet wide, glowing with faint and welcoming light. Otherwise the room was simple. As he walked into the main hall, directly in front of him, there was an immense staircase that led to the upper floors, with a hallway extending to either side, a replica of the chandelier that was in the entrance room, but twice the size hung over the mahogany coffee table, which was surrounded by sand-brown couches atop a plain brown rug which sat upon hardwood floors. He was so distracted that he never heard the step till they were brought to his attention. "Naruto, honey, is that you?" Naruto turned around to see his fiancée Tsunami, who was dressed in a simple black loose-fitting kimono, looking like she had just awoken from a nap. "Yeah, it's me," was Naruto's silent reply. "Where have you been when you didn't show? I got really worried that something happened," was Tsunami's reaction as she ran to him and jumped onto him, frantically kissing him, speaking between kisses. He responded as best he could, "I can't tell you, it was top secret, just know that everything is fine dear," wrapping his arms around her waist. As they broke apart to take a breath, Tsunami began to grow a very predatory smile on her face, a glint in her eye as she spoke with lust evident in her voice. "You know, we are the only ones in the west wing of the house, we 3 could have a little party. Wouldn't we disturb you, Shino?" was Naruto's response, picking up of what she referred to with selective hearing. "She is in the east wing, guest quarters, sleeping like a log. She spent most of the time looking over the clan ledgers and did not look happy when we ate lunch, which was the last time I saw her before checking out why I hadn't heard anything from her." "Inari, spending the night at a friend's house." "Haku, late shift at the hospital." Naruto nodded and wrapped his arm around his fiancée before he realized something. "We 3?" was his question. "You can't have forgotten about you guessed that quick, have you?" spoke a familiar female voice. "Anya, of course not, you are invited to the dance party after all." Anya stood in the darkened doorway that led to the private family kitchen, wearing a tight-fitting formal brown kimono that left little to the imagination of any healthy male. As Naruto tried to focus on something other than her apparently large chest, he said Anya. She focused her eyes on him, suddenly becoming worried. He felt Tsunami stiffen at his side. Naruto continued, I don't want you to sleep with me because you owe me something. That is just not right and I won't let it happen, no matter how tempting it is. Anya became relieved and said, you were right Tsunami, it's almost too good to be real. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath and exhaled as she opened her eyes. Naruto, I appreciate what you are saying, but what you don't know is that I need this, badly. 7 years ago, I had a boyfriend, the one guy who I thought was perfect. He gave me small presents. He was gentle and sweet. He was so perfect. We had been dating from the middle of that year, and 4 months after that, he invited me to his apartment for dinner. We ate, drank a little sake and talked about life in general till he kissed me. She seemed to start shaking at this point, her head bowed and slight sobbing could be heard. She continued, he began to kiss me hard, pushing me against his couch. He moved his hand underneath my kimono and moved to cup my breast. I pushed him off. The sobbing became more intense, interrupting her words and causing her to shake more violently. I told Sob that I wasn't sob ready. She raised her head, her tear tracks apparent against her tanned skin, her eyes shadowed over, moving closer to the shocked Naruto and Tsunami. He sobbed, hit me once, and then again sob till I couldn't feel anything. He got on top of me and sob used me. Used me for so long, my begging sob wouldn't convince him to stop. She stopped sobbing at this point, her voice becoming neutral and mechanical, her eyes shadowed over. I got home early the next morning. Soom caught me sneaking into the compound with my bruised face and condition. She found out what happened. Tears still ran down her face like a small waterfall. She kept going. She led a team of clan member to the asshole's house, but found it left in the same condition as it was left, without any way to track him. All he left was a note bragging over what he did to me. In it, he promised to come back for me. The tears began to fall faster to right as again and again. She fell silent at this, Naruto and Tsunami still frozen in shock over what they had just heard. Anya turned away and started making her way to the door, saying, I'll leave, after all, I'm only damaged good. She never expected Naruto's arms to wrap around her, his voice entering her ears silently, as Tsunami stepped into her line of sight a moment later and joined the hug. It's true that the bastard hurt you, he said, I won't argue that. He stepped out of the hug with Tsunami, who held the other woman's arms, and slowly turned her around to come face to face, meeting Naruto's shining ocean blue eyes. But that you are still here is a testament to your will. That Sia is such a strong little girl just like her mother is a testament to your will. That you did not let him beat you, to forever strand you into the dirt is a testament to your will. Cupping her cheek, I will gladly stand with you, through thick or thin, to be there when you need me, through night or day. I will be there to make sure the asshole never beat you again, never to defeat you or hurt you again, if you will accept my help. Anya lost her mechanical voice and her dark look, a sad smile grew on her face. You would accept me with my scars. All of us have scars which sadly make us who we are. They are you just like mine are me. I love that you got over them, like I have yet to get over some of mine. Let me help, like me, you could use all the help you can get. Thank you. Ever so slowly, they drew closer to each other, till their lips gently touched each other's with a silent yet powerful passion. Briefly separating for breath, Anya spoke in a daze, please Naruto, help me. He smiled, of course if you let me. Naruto was in the kitchen, making breakfast. Thank God you are here, I was hoping to catch you, Yoshino spoke out as she entered the kitchen wearing a plain green and white kimono. She sniffed the air. Is that pancakes? Yep, hope you like them. Love them, but there is something just a bit more important, was Yoshino's worried reply. Naruto was serious as he turned the stove off, placing the 12.5 pancakes into the oven to stay warm. Turning to Yoshino, Naruto asked, what's up? Chapter 6. Almost there, the Chunin exams begin. So that's it, Naruto asked Yoshino, a wary look on his face. Yes. I've triple-checked the numbers. There is no mistake. Naruto looked at Yoshino in the face and replied, who would have access to the accounts? Yoshino nodded as she sat a plate of fresh pancakes present before just drenched in syrup. Only the council could even have a slight access to the accounts. But they would need the approval of the Hokage to use them as they seem to have done. I don't see him giving permission to the council for this type of abuse, I doubt he gave it at all actually. Naruto nodded, his bowl of syrup accompanied by pancakes abandoned and empty in front of him, staring down at the ledge with various little sticky notes placed all over the page that he was currently looking at. He sighed heavily, looking warily once more at Yoshino, who sat silently eating her pancakes. We have no choice, do we? None. The Hokage has to know that the council is abusing its powers. I would wager that it's the civilian council, with no too very little support of the ninja council. Probably, but how do we present it to him? Simple, you tell him. Yoshino tensed. What? Was her near-instant reaction, forcing the chair Naruto sat on to slide back a few inches due to the wind pressure that exploded out of Yoshino's mouth. Damn, never knew someone could have that sort of lung strength. Shut up. This is serious, you moron. He won't see me because of me being forsaken. Naruto interrupted her and said, but coming from me, he will listen. Besides, Naruto looked at her eyes seriously, you would be able to answer any questions he has. I can't, for I don't know a thing about this. But, listen, interrupted Naruto, you are the only one who could bring it to his attention. You are someone he knows would not joke about something like this. Gigi would believe me if I came in and said it, but my reputation would overshadow the evidence. But my own as a Forsaken will also cloud it. True it would, but no one ignores the clan head and his financial advisor, not when they come at the same time. But, relax, I'll set up an appointment with Gigi and we will get this sorted out. But now is not the time, said Naruto, focusing on the sounds of people walking outside the hall. As he finished, Tsunami and Anya entered the kitchen wearing bathrobes with slippers, slightly limping. Morning dear, Anya, Naruto said, getting up and kissing both ladies, who smiled small happy smiles. None of the three ever noticed the small tinge of jealousy upon Yoshino's face, which was quickly brought under control. Oh, that reminds me, Naruto said as he stepped away from the two women, rummaging in his pockets. Here it is. He said, pulling out a little velvet box. In Yuzuka clan residence. Tsume was worried, very worried. The last time her sister hadn't come home at night had been. Tsume let out a fierce growl. That asshole better hope he dies before I find him, she spoke harshly to herself. The man had disappeared without a trace, hinting that the man had connections to someone in the village that had been able to hide him and hide him well. But that would not stop her from finding the bastard, and when she did, there would be new dog food for a short time, and she just left it at that. Her thought stopped as she heard the door open and a sound of hurried feet racing down the entrance hall to large estate. Anya, Tsume called out, I'm in the kitchen. The sound of rushed feet coming in her direction permeated the halls in a matter of seconds, louder and louder as they hurried in Tsume's direction. The door to the kitchen suddenly burst open, almost ripping off its hinges as Anya burst into the kitchen with the biggest smile that Tsume had ever seen on her sister's face. Anya, Tsume said with a small smile of her own, what happened? All Anya did was squeal like a young teenage girl and showed Tsume her right hand. There, shining in the light, was a simple topaz gem that was just a little smaller than the fingernail on an adult's thumb, surrounded by what Tsume guessed was an aquamarine lining, all on a silver ring. Tsume let her jaw drop at the obvious engagement ring that now sat on her sister's finger, unbelieving of what was going on. Are you sure, Anya? Tsume said after a moment of silence. I mean, that was really quick. Anya smiled at her sister. Yes, I am more than sure. I've never felt so right. He is everything I could ever want. But what about? Naruto promised to hunt the bastard down. Whatever it takes, he will hand me his head. But now is not the time to talk of such trivial stuff. Will you just look at the size of this ring? Hokage's office. Sarutobi seemed to be growing a new scowl every time the council was mentioned. The old man looked at the blonde clan head that stood before him, no expression present on his face. You have a nasty habit of causing trouble for me, you know that. Yep, was Naruto's quick response. Sighing, the old man said in a sad voice, sadly there is nothing we can do to bring the ones responsible to punishment. Naruto slammed both hands on the desk. What? Naruto, relax. Fuck that. My family has been stolen from Gigi. Stolen from? Yet you have the nerve to come and tell me that justice can't be served. Why the hell can I not get the justice that is rightfully mine? Naruto, I'm sorry to say this, but it is because of Yoshino. Naruto's eyes began to glow a strong golden blue color, like a red light bulb on a reindeer's nose. What the fuck did you just say, old man? Yoshino responded before the old Hokage could even formulate his response. I'm Forsaken, Naruto-kun, that's why. Neither male pointed out the sudden addition to the young man's name. The old man jumped in as the young man's face grew dark with rage. Traditions die hard, Naruto. I share the same beliefs you do when it regards to the crap like this, but to the council, the mere fact is that she is Forsaken. Many on the council would see the evidence in the same light, yesterday's trash. It would be like it never existed and not one would support it. I myself would have someone look at her results to confirm what was found, but there is no one I would trust not to be in the civilian's pocket. Damn it, I'm sorry, Naruto. It's not your fault, Yoshino, it never will be. But old man, Naruto said, once more focusing on the old man seated heavily on the seat, I want the council to not have access to my accounts, as I now have a financial advisor. But the council, and you should, old man, as they have no right poking their noses in clan business. Besides, Naruto said, I've got the best accountant anyone can find, and I'm not letting her go. Sarutobi smiled at the young clan head, while Yoshino let a blush appear on her face. The old man spoke. How do you know the laws, Naruto? Last I knew you were just reading up on the laws of Konoha when it regards clans. I have to thank Tsunami, as she was learning to be a legal attendant when she was in Wave. While I was out on the mission with Team 10, she read up on the laws and is helping me learn them, while at the same time reading up on the village laws. You lucky bastard. Sarutobi said with a smile. Not one, but two extremely smart women. When will you rest? When Kami thinks that I have had enough, which knowing my luck won't be for a while, you senile old monkey. That's it, come here young whippersnapper, I'll show you who is senile, the Hokage yelled as he leaped over the desk and stared to chase Naruto around the office, Yoshino now sporting a loose jaw. After a few moments, there was a knock on the door. Within seconds, the Sandaime was seated once more with Naruto standing next to Yoshino. The woman would from that day on never know how they moved so fast. Enter, spoke the Sandaime with authority. The cat-masked Anbu walked in and said, "Sir, you said to let you know when Ino Yamanaka were to wake up from her coma." "Good, I'll be on my way." "I would not suggest that, sir." The old man looked at the Anbu quizzically and asked, "Why not Anbu?" "The purple-haired woman, she is in hysterics, sir. I don't think that her mind has recovered from the ordeal. She moved into the corner of the room with the blankets from the hospital bed and won't let anyone approach. The only ones that have gotten remotely close are the female nurses." The old man paled as the Anbu finished her report. Naruto spoke out quietly, yet all overheard him. "Gigi, let me try and talk to her." Yoshino this time spoke out, "But Naruto, you heard what she said, the girl is not in the right state of mind around men, period. I don't even know what happened, and I know for a fact that a woman that does not want to be around men shouldn't be forced into it. Yes, that is true, but it's also known that a woman that has been saved by a man may sometime grow attached to him, like a lifeboat in a turbulent sea. It does not happen all the time, but this one, it may just work." The Sandaime was silent as the three others focused on him. Slowly, he nodded and spoke. "I'll let you see her, Naruto, but be warned." His eyes becoming angry squint. "She asked you to leave, you leave, is that clear?" "Yes sir," Naruto said. Turning to the Anbu, he asked, "Anbu-san, I know my way to the hospital, could you please take my financial advisor back to the estates for me?" "Of course Namikaze-sama, but I ask you not to enter the hospital room till I get there." "That is no problem, but please don't call me Sama, it makes me feel like the old goat behind me." "Why, you said Sarutobi," throwing his pipe at the clan head, but the teen was already gone. Konoha Hospital, 10 minutes later. Naruto walked behind the cat-masked Anbu, trying his best not to admire her hips, which he swore she was swinging purposefully. They soon approached a room deep in the hospital, guarded by two other Anbu, Bear and Hawk their masks were. "Hokage-sama has given Namikaze-kun permission to enter." Bear nodded and looked at Naruto and said, "Good luck, that girl behaves more like a cornered animal than an actual human being, won't even let her own father close." Naruto solemnly nodded and knocked. "I told you to go away." Was the immediate wail that came from within the room, a desperate and empty wail that hurt Naruto greater than any physical wound. Even the Anbu seemed to shiver and bow their heads in sadness. Calmly, Naruto spoke through the closed door. "Ino, it's me, Naruto." All was silent in the room, eerily silent. Naruto sighed and began to move away from the door, but stopped when it slightly opened, revealing a single pale blue eye. "Naruto," she said, barely allowing Naruto to hear her. Naruto smiled and nodded. Before he knew it, the door snapped open, a hand grabbed his collar and yanked him in, slamming the door behind him. Hawk looked at the recently vacated spot and asked to the other two, "Am I missing something?" Pat spoke out. Naruto was the one to extract Ino Yamanaka from the basement of the Yamanaka estates. Both Anbu flinched and nodded. Inside hospital room, Naruto sat crossed-legged in the middle of the hospital room, cradling a sobbing Ino in his arms. "This can't be Ino, what did those bastards do to her?" Naruto remembered the old Ino in the academy, so vibrant, loud and strong. She always used to stand tall and never back down from anybody, well except Iruka-sensei when he used his demon head jutsu, but then who wasn't scared of that? Anyways, the Ino that now rested in his lap was well a shell, a cracked mirror of who she once was. Her spirit crushed, her very strength gone. In all intensive purposes, Ino Yamanaka was dead, gone shortly after becoming a genin, a shattered shell left behind. Naruto did not know how long he sat there, rocking back and forth with Ino on his lap. All he knew was that she cried herself to sleep. A scared look burned into her face as the sun set outside the hospital window. The door slowly opened, revealing Sarutobi standing on the other side, a sad look on his face. "She's gone, Gigi," Naruto said, looking over at the old man, who silently brought over a chair and sat down. "They broke her, the bastards, and broke her." The Sandaime nodded and said, "It is highly unlikely that she will ever be able to return to duty, if ever lead a normal life again. Although, seeing this, I think that she may one day recover. I just don't think that being a shinobi will ever be on her list of dream jobs." Naruto nodded, sadly looking down as Ino's scared face slowly began to fall, a smile growing. "You're right. But what are we going to do, Gigi? She can't stay here, that would do more harm than good, and taking her back to the Yamanaka residence is out of the question, as that is likely to make her insane. I suggest she go live with you." "Why?" asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. "If I were to send her to any of the other clans, she would once more start to lose what sanity she has left being around people that she does not know, nor those that she truly trusts. But your compound is practically empty, maybe being around people, just not that many will allow to grow back into herself. I don't know if that will work, but that is the best option we have." I agree, and who know, maybe Inari and Sia can help her as well, children are called miracles after all. Possibly. Anyways, that is not all I'm here for. The council was rather pissed when I notified them that you had chosen a financial advisor. When asked who, I told them about Yoshino. At this the Hokage's visage turned grim, the head of the Nara clan called her out on the issue of her being forsaken, immediately bringing in the civilian council to try and get her removed. I told them that neither the other clans nor the civilian council had any right to force the issue. They continued to whine about it, the Nara being the most adamant that she should not help the Namikaze clan regain its financial stability. I finally had enough and I told the Nara to shut up and stop crying, just because he threw out the one woman who made sure that the finances in the clan were kept in line, just because it ruined his cloud watching time. He shut up after that. Yes he did, and he looked quite angry with me, but wisely kept his mouth shut. I would not put it past him to try and take Yoshino back. Let him try. Good answer. Go home Naruto and take young Miss Yamanaka with you, I will make sure that all her belongings are sent to your estates. Moments later, Namika's home. Tsunami entered the kitchen, where Naruto sat reading a scroll. She is still asleep. Naruto looked at his wife and nodded. What happened, dear? Naruto looked at her with haunted eyes and started to talk. When all was said and done, Tsunami was openly crying, barely holding in her sobs of sadness. We are not sure if she will ever recover. We will bring her back, Naruto-kun, if anyone could do it, this family can. Naruto smiled a small smile at Tsunami and responded, we have to babe, we have to, for her sake. Before Tsunami could respond, a certain twinkle present in her eye, a resound knock came from the house door. And now the show begins. Dear? It's probably the Nara clan head as well as the one for the Yamanaka. Can I watch you rip them a new one? It wouldn't be the same without one of you there and you know it. The knocking once more resounded through the house, this time more frantically and with more force. Humming. Naruto called out, moving towards the door with Tsunami close behind. Opening the door, Naruto met eye to eye with an infuriated Shikaku Nara, with Shikamaru standing next to him. Behind them stood an equally pissed Inoichi. Shikamaru seemed to be glaring at Naruto with an uncharacteristic amount of rage. Good afternoon gentlemen, what can we help you with? Naruto said politely. You can let that Forsaken leave the property and die like she should have, was Shikaku's quick response. Naruto's polite attitude left rather quickly after that. And who are you to demand anything of me, Nara? This caused Shikamaru to flinch quite visibly at that point, for never had he heard such unbridled rage come from Naruto. Listen here you damn brat, I have all the right to demand anything I want of you. Before any could react, Naruto had a kunai that he had kept hidden in the kimono sleeve at Shikaku's throat. Listen here Nara, you have no right to demand of me anything, as I cannot demand anything of you. Naruto, shut up Shikamaru. This is a conversation between clan heads, not sniveling idiots. Naruto focused once more on the elder Nara, noticing Shikamaru's flinch out of the corner of his eye. You can state your opinions all you want, but that does not mean I have to listen to them, nor do I have to acknowledge them. You had a one-time treasure Nara, and you threw it away over some bullshit. Now you try to ruin her life more over the stated bullshit just because you are not having your way. Well guess what Nara, I don't give a shit about who she is, nor about what you seem to think she is. She is Yoshino, my financial advisor and administrator. I trust her. That is all that matters. Now get your ass off my doorstep before I kick it off. This is not over boy. Was his angry snarl, turning around and leaping onto a nearby building. Keeping the kunai in hand, Naruto looked at Inoichi and asked, what do you want Yamanka? My daughter. You really are that stupid aren't you? What did you say you damn brat? You heard me. You will give me your daughter or I will. Naruto interrupted the older Yamanaka mid-ran be responsible for the death of an injured girl. That made the older Yamanaka silent. Your family broke her, destroyed the once vibrant and confident young woman. And you let it happen, you let them get their greedy little hands on her and break her, you sorry bastard. Now see here. No. She just woke up and wouldn't let anyone enter her hospital room. I was the first. She dragged me in, sat on my lap and cried, sir, cried. Her body was limp, weak and very light. She kept crying on how she screamed for you, how she wanted you to save her from your own family, but you never came. They nearly had her, you dumb piece of shit, and you have the gall to want to take her back to the one place that made her suffer more than anything in her life, that almost near killed her. Are you really that foolish? The older blonde stood quiet, his eyes tearing up as Shikamaru stood there staring at Naruto's face, unbelieving of what he just had heard. Can I visit her? Spoke Inoichi after a brief moment of tense silence. It's all up to her. But as of now you can't, sir. You know what such mental torture can do, more than anyone you would know. The man nodded and began to move away. Shikamaru yet stood there staring at Naruto with confusion. The young Nara sighed and said, you are angry with me aren't you? Naruto looked at him with a raised eyebrow. What was your first hint, Dumbus? For one so smart you sure are stupid. Shikamaru lowered his head and silently began to walk away. Before he was fully out of sight, he spoke out loud enough, I love my mother Naruto, never doubt that. I will win her love back even if I have to die to do it. Strong words, Shikamaru, now let's see you back them up. With that, Naruto closed the door. I will, Naruto, you just watch and see, I will get my mother back. Inside Namika's mansion. That was harder than I thought it would be, Naruto said with a sad smile. Ishino, who had stood out of sight near the window on the above floor, bowed her head as she moved into the dining room. Naruto did not miss the slight movement from the woman and said, "It's not your fault, Ishino. How many times do I have to say that for it to get through, you thick skull? You are one to talk, Naruto," she replied with a smile, "at least I know of when to give up on someone." Naruto responded as any full-grown adult in such a situation would respond. He stuck his tongue at her. Next day, Naruto stood on the bridge where his team usually met, wearing his black shinobi pants, his tight black short-sleeved shirt that was covered by a dark brown leather vest. Thank God that Tsunami is a hard sleeper, he thought with a smile. She would have killed me if she had caught me wearing this. Now that I think about it, she has been sleeping a lot more and complaining that she isn't feeling that good. Wonder what's up. He was not allowed any more opportunity to reminisce as Sakura and Sasuke joined him on the bridge, Sasuke standing on the opposite end of Naruto and Sakura, brooding as usual. Looking at his pink-haired teammate, he asked what's his problem. Sakura looked at her crush with worry. I don't know, he usually doesn't brood this much unless something came up. Before Naruto could dig any further than that, a poofing sound happened near the bridge end where Sasuke was standing, revealing their sensei, Kakashi. No way, Naruto said looking at his wristwatch. You're on time. Sasuke as usual just scoffed and ignored the other three people in the vicinity. Kakashi offered no comment other than noticing Sakura's odd silence, but he ignored it. Pulling out 3 slips of paper, he started talking. I have volunteered you 3 for the Chunin exams. If you want to enter, go to the academy an hour past noon and hand these to the receptionist. They will direct you on where to go from there. Good luck. And with that he vanished. Well, Naruto said after a brief moment of silence as the 3 genin looked at the forms in their hands, which read that the exams would begin promptly at noon in the academy building. I guess that is where I'm going. Seeing as I have time, I'm going to get some early lunch and then head on over. See you guys later. Neither really cared as the blonde moved away, Sakura's plea for a date with the resident emo having been gone with the wind of his departure. Moments later, Naruto was found sitting at a Chirikus ramen bar, large bowl of fresh ramen sitting in front of him. I have heard that you have been really busy, said the old man who ran the stand, ironically possessing the very name of the stand that Naruto now ate at, Ichiraku. Oh, you know my life, old man, one challenge after another. Oh, dodging more angry mobs. No, nothing that nice. Being chased by angry mobs is now considered nice. I got attacked by the top half of a demonic chicken. The old man stared at the young one in front of him, his eyebrow raised. Demonic chicken. No other way to describe the damn thing. He even got really pissed when it called it an overgrown chicken. Naruto, do you ever have a normal day? Old man, if I ever had a normal day, life would end as we know it. I agree. Oh, Naruto, you're here. Naruto's attention moved to an attractive brunette woman that moved through the hanging cloth that slightly obstructed the entrance. Hey, am sorry that I haven't been around, Naruto spoke, never taking his eyes off hers. No problem, was her response. I heard of the giant demonic chicken and thought you deserved a break, but a very small yet clearly evil smile grew on her gentle pale face, a lone strand of brown hair falling across one of her dark gray eyes, only adding to the sudden vision of pain Naruto saw coming towards him. If you don't visit soon, without a reasonable excuse that I approve of, well, let's just guarantee you alone time without Raymond, am I clear? Naruto instantly leaped off the chair and saluted, responding with a crisp yes ma'am. Good boy, Am said, the threatening glare gone, replaced by that of the beautiful woman once more, patting his shoulder and walking past him, weaving her legs slowly, guaranteeing Naruto's eyes were stuck to one particular spot just below her hips. Very wise, Naruto, giving in like that. I know, old man, but like I say to everyone that will listen, it's all instincts of survival. I hear that, now you better be going or you will be late, said old man Ichiraku, pointedly looking at the small clock that hung on the wall. You're right. See you afterwards. We are going to celebrate me becoming a Chunin. Good luck, Naruto. We'll have it all ready for you. You will need the luck more than me, old man. And with that Naruto vanished. Wonder what he meant. Oh, father dearest. Yes, AM. Academy, 0100HRS. Naruto stood there staring at the academy building, watching, ignoring the other teams that walked into the building. He never really registered when he started moving forward, nor when his teammates joined him, but he did say one thing. You know, I thought I had seen the last of this damn place. This has to be an omen, a very bad omen. He never saw the emotionless red eyes tracking the many contestants as they entered the structure. Yes, mother, there will be much blood. Chapter 7. Tides of Sand. Damn was Naruto's most recurring thought as he followed his teammates through the academy halls. Never thought that there would be this many, or that Sasuke was really that stupid were the thoughts that soon moved inside the blonde ninja's mind. Mere moments after entering the academy, they had encountered a pair of Konoha genin holding back a massive group of candidates from various villages just in front of a room that read 301. Over the screams that came from both sides, Team 7 moved slowly closer to the door. Sakura suddenly tensed as she focused on the door sign above the door, narrowing her eyes at it. Naruto looked at her, both standing about a step behind Sasuke, as she turned her head to him and mouthed Jinjutsu. He nodded and was about to get Sasuke's attention when the young Uchiha spoke out, "Drop the Jinjutsu." This caused Naruto as well as Sakura to promptly slap their heads with their own palms. So someone actually noticed the trick. Sasuke responded with an arrogant smirk painfully sewn on his face. "Of course, I am an Uchiha after all." So then, said the unknown, regular-looking Chunin, looking down at Sasuke. "Due to his irregular height, you know that there have been many teams that have gone into these exams, this being our second time taking these exams, and we have watched whole teams fall into madness, most of the rest died. Are you ready to run that risk?" Sasuke did not even blink. "Of course again. I am an Uchiha, better than any of you urchins," was his reply, with a satisfied smirk glued to his face. The partner, who to this point had not said a word, growled and without warning leapt at Sasuke, ignoring the rest of the surrounding genin en route to his target, none moving to stop what was obviously an attack. Apparently, the last Uchiha had not expected such a reaction and was unable to react to the fist that impacted his cheek, sending him to the ground in a disheveled heap. The same one then focused his attention on Naruto and Sakura, his fist tightening. Naruto held up his hands, palm outward, saying, "Hey, relax. We may be his teammates, doesn't mean that we approve of his intelligence." Sakura spoke not a word as she stared at the down Uchiha with a faraway look in her eyes, a sad look of realization apparent on her face. Naruto raised an eyebrow as his eyes moved from her face to the genin that moved back to stand with his partner. Slowly, he picked Sasuke up by the back of his shirt, swinging him around, he proceeded to carry the last Uchiha as one would carry a sack of potatoes. Sakura began to follow her blonde teammate as he moved up the stairs, ignoring the argument that once more broke out behind them, neither noticing the looks a trio of Konoha genin were giving the three, which soon proceeded to follow them unnoticed. They neared room 301, Sasuke having regained his state of awareness just at the opening of the hall that led to the room from a large hall. Kakashi stood in front of the door which sat under a sign that read 301, alongside him stood. "So these are your youthful students. They do glow with power of youth, you have done well my rival, passing on the power of youth. An. Damn, that actually hurts to write, ouch, fingers hurt." Kakashi looked up from his little orange book and said a classic line, "You say something, guy. Damn you and your hipness." Kakashi focused on his students, still ignoring the guy dressed in a tight forest green leader to his right, extending his hand he said, "Give me the forms I gave you." Sakura slowly gave hers out after pulling Sasuke's out of his pocket, seeing it sticking out quite conveniently. Naruto wordlessly handed his over, staring at his sensei with a raised eyebrow. "Just for the record," Kakashi said, not noticing the curious looks that his students were giving him, "I was the one that would guarantee whether any of you three," pointing to his genin students, "would participate in the exams." "What?" Sakura spoke, slight surprise evident on her face. "To fully participate in the exam," Kakashi continued, "each member of a team must be in attendance. If one of you had not shown up, I would have prevented the other two from participating." After that statement, both of the conscious Team 7 members allowed their expressions to change, Naruto's narrowed, while Sakura's eyes became the size of dinner plate with surprise and slight fear. But as that was not the issue, Kakashi said with one of his patented eye smiles, "You guys can go right in, and you should probably wake Sasuke up so his fangirls don't get him." Naruto allowed an evil smile to grow on his face. Sakura looked at her teammate as she noticed Kakashi stare at his student, saying, "You wouldn't dare." Sakura's eyes began to widen as she realized what Naruto was thinking and said, "You are evil if you are going to do what I think you are going to do." Suddenly the look dropped off his face as Naruto realized something. Damn it, none of his fangirls made it this far, there goes the idea of tying him to chair with a sign pointing at him. Oh well, next time. Kakashi and Sakura sighed in relief as the blonde teen walked by them. "Too close, Sasuke better watch his back," Kakashi muttered as he began to wander off. Sakura, on the other hand, followed her teammate in with a thoughtful look on her face, silent with no hint of where her thoughts were headed. Sasuke awoke soon after Naruto entered the room, Sakura close behind them, forcing the blonde teen to let him go, staring down the curious gazes of the teams that had not fallen for the trap a mere floor below. "So you guys are here too?" A male voice spoke out quietly to their right. Hiba walked into eyesight as Team 7 turned to face him, Shino and Hinata right behind him. All three of them had sad looks on their faces. Sakura looked at them and asked quietly, which surprised her teammates, "What's wrong?" "You don't know." Shino spoke to her about what happened to Ino. With Kiba and Hinata looking at the pink-haired girl with evident surprise. "Only rumors, but I don't have any proof to back them up, just that she nearly lost her life and most of her sanity." "They are true," Naruto said, the look of prank planning gone from his face, replaced by one of deep sadness. "She is staying with me right now. I don't know which rumors you have heard, but most of them are probably true." Unnoticed to them, Sasuke had moved away, not even bothering to let them know, and just leaned against the wall, proud to just brood the time away. The other genin looked at him in surprise, and it was Hinata who broke the silence. "Why is she with you and not at?" Hinata began to ask but got interrupted. "I was the one that rescued from the hidden basement underneath the Yamanaka compound." Naruto spoke out, catching the four off guard. "I can't tell you what I found, but I was the only one she would react positively to. You all remember how Ino used to be right, how strong she acted and how loud she could be." After waiting to receive nods from the four genin, he continued, imaging a shattered mirror, "And that is what she has become." Reactions that the genin had did not surprise him. Kiba stepped back as his eyes widened, Shino merely looked down, and Naruto swore he saw a tear fall down his cheek. Hinata and Sakura both put the fingertips of their respective right hands to their mouths, trying to hide the look of shock that had become painfully evident. "It's worse than it sounds, as you can guess," Naruto continued. "The Hokage is hoping that maybe staying with someone she trusts, as well as where there are very few people that are strangers, will help her recover. He believes that she may never be fit enough to be a ninja again, and sadly, I have to agree with him." "Why?" was Sakura's asked question, looking at Naruto with tears in her eyes. "When I said she was broken, I meant to the fullest extent of the word. The Ino we knew died all just after we graduated, maybe a little after. I'm the only one she will relax around, the only one she will talk to, if only a little. In short, I'm the only one that is giving her the strength to wake up and get moving every day, even if only a little." Naruto looked once more at each of them. "I almost did not come here, but thought that when Ino recovered, when not if, she would probably grow really angry at me for holding myself back for her. I will make Chunin for Ino." The rest of the group nodded. As the group held their small discussion quietly, ignoring the surrounding genin from other villages, a large burst of smoke invaded the air. As it dispersed, a group of Konoha ninja, rank unidentifiable due to their not wearing any obvious signs, was revealed. Most wore the same thing, consisting of a set of grey jackets with matching grey pants, along with common black sandals. As the man grabbed the attention of all the genin in the hall, not one noticed the silver-haired ninja looking slightly angry at the Konoha genin. "Alright, listen up you maggots," yelled the only one of the group of superior ninja that was dressed in something different. The man, possessing a dark skin tone, wore a black bandana along with a long black trench coat. His body was covered in a set of plain, yet worn-looking, black pants and shirt, ending with a set of black boots. His cloths may have been plain, but the very air around him seemed to crackle with power, and his eyes seemed to carve a hole into every genin's head, forcing a sense of doom to be present in the air. Many could be seen to have a shiver all around the room. "Alright you maggots, listen up." The scary man yelled the names Ibiki, "And I am in charge of this test. You have a problem, that then get the fuck out." The tone that Ibiki used seemed to increase the weight that the air had gained, forcing quite a few genin to breath heavy, their eyes wide with obvious fear at the very presence, if not the words, brought them to their knees. Yet, even then, not one moved from their position, very few even noticed that there were a handful of genin unaffected by Ibiki's persona. The scowl that had been on Ibiki's face from the beginning did not even drop as he continued, even if his tone dropped somewhat. "On the forms that you handed in earlier, there was a number that had been circled. Find the chair with that number on it. If you don't remember that number, a Chunin will point it out for you." The genin began to move around, sitting in their assigned seats. Sakura was sitting smack in middle of the room, next to two unfamiliar Konoha genin. Sasuke was in the distant corner of the room surrounded by men as well, but all from different villages. Naruto on the other hand was just a few rows further up the Sakura surrounded by women. He did not know what had given him this luck, but he was wary nonetheless, for most of them were giving him looks he did not appreciate at all. Hinata gazed at him with a coy look on his left, obviously planning something that he did not much mind. On his right though, giving him an unsettling look, sat a blonde-haired girl, whose hair fell to her waist, wearing a set of dark purple pants, shirt and vest, all loose as to hide her body from view. Her headband proclaimed her to be from Kumo, and her deep forest green eyes gazed at him up and down, with a mix of what looked to be suspicion and something else that was unidentifiable. The girl directly in front of him also seemed to be giving him looks, her eye on him slightly, as if she were silently talking to the guy next to her, both from Kumo. All he could tell was that she wore a loose dark blue top with short blonde hair that ended at the base of her skull. Her single eye that was looking at him was a dark turquoise color. He swore that he felt other gazes looking at him from behind, but he did not look back as to give himself away. Instead he turned to smile at Hinata, who also noticed the looks that were being given to her blonde crush. As Naruto met her eyes with his, she moved forward and planted a kiss on his lips afterward, saying, "Let's do our best, Naruto-kun." Naruto swore that the temperature fell in the room. He smiled a small smile as he gazed at the girl in front of him as he said, out of nowhere, "Okay Hinata-chan. But be careful," he continued, gazing deeply into her eyes with a serious look. "If you don't pass, I'll have no choice but to punish you, okay?" The temperature once more fell as the Chunin passed papers to every student. Hinata's eyes widened as her mind registered what Naruto said, a glazed look entering her eye making Naruto raise an eyebrow at her, but before he could comment, Ibiki once more spoke up. Okay, here is the deal. Catching the attention of all genin in the room before you, there is a written test with 9 questions on it, the whole test being worth 20 points at the start. Cheating is not allowed, and for every time you are caught cheating you lose 2 points, losing the same amount if you get the question wrong. The moment you get caught cheating more than 4 times, you fail this test and will be asked to leave. Simple enough for you? As many genin nodded slowly, Ibiki let a feral smile grow on his face as he continued. As you leave, your entire team will be asked to leave with you. This got most of the genin attention as Naruto began to panic in his head. I hate paper tests. If you don't like that, Ibiki said seriously, then the door is right there. Once he saw that no one was moving, he continued, as I mentioned, there are only 9 questions on the paper, the final one to be given separately at the end of this exam. The exam itself will be 45 minutes, at which point I will give you the final question. Remember, we are all watching you. The test begins. Looked at a small watch on his wrist now. All genin flipped their papers face up and began to work. Some panicked while others went to work answering the questions. Naruto was one of the former. He stared at the test in front of him and pencil poised with only one thought on his mind, I'm fucked. But still, as he thought about the test, he could not help but be curious. Some of the questions asked about the velocity of kunai with accompanying wind gusts. Questions like that are nearly impossible to answer for any number of factors, yet it was there. There was no way to actually pass based on the answers alone, at least not for someone like him who was not 100% book smarts like him. All he could do was cheat, that is of course when it hit him. Without cheating, those who aren't so smart can't pass this test. But if they cheat, Naruto must have blanked out while thinking, for the next thing he knew, there was a kunai flying just millimeters by his cheek, a resounding thunk, and sudden shout of surprise was heard throughout the room. Number 82 spoke. One of the proctors lined around the room. Leave the room, you're done. Another followed right after. Numbers 35, 92, you're going with him. The 3 genin started to leave the room, which was quickly followed by a string of genin from all villages followed soon after. Naruto finished his thought, and if they are caught with a grimace. He noticed as teams began to be kicked out that both girls next to him were going about it fairly quickly, but for some reason Naruto could not bring himself to glance at their papers and instead glanced around the room at the proctors lining the walls. Naruto could not help but grimace as most of them were focused on him. He even recognized some of them from less than likable situations. He focused back on his paper. He closed his eyes, realizing that the only chance he had was to gamble on the last question. Then, more probably out of sense of perseverance, he began to write on the paper. Hinata was worried as she watched Naruto not write anything for nearly 10 minutes, only gazing around the room and then back to his paper. After a few short moments he began to write on his paper, something she could not see that clearly. She focused discreetly on his eyes, as a little twinkle was clearly visible, that gave her a small smile. Soon the time passed, Ibiki glancing at his wristwatch. After a few more seconds he called out, pencils down, maggots. As the genin that had not finished the test placed their pencils down, Ibiki glanced around the room and began to speak, now you have a choice. You can take the final question if you want, or not take it at all and leave. Naruto looked at the man with suspicion evident in his eyes as he heard a voice from the back of the room that he did not recognize yell out, that is a stupid question, you moron. Ibiki let a sadistic grin spread across his face. If you take this question and fail you will never be allowed to be Chunin. This forced the room into silence. Soon the same voice that had spoken out before hollered out, you can't do that. Biba joined in, there are people here who have taken the exam more than once. Ibiki interrupted, but they have never had me, tough shit. If you don't want to take the question, then leave. But that a whole core of genin began to leave the room, rushing to the point that they basically broke the door down. Ibiki glanced around the room, letting his grin grow wider. Anyone else? A loud snoring noise resounded throughout the room. Ibiki almost lost his grin as his eyes focused on the sleeping Naruto. As there was a chalkboard behind where Ibiki was standing, loaded with pieces of chalk and erasers. Without even looking or moving in the eyes of the genin students, Ibiki had 2 erasers and several pieces of chalk flying in Naruto's direction. Now of course Naruto, being who he was, possessed all the luck within certain situation and none in the rest. As such, it was his fortune that he had his elbow on his test paper, which, conveniently, slipped forward slightly. But slightly was all it took to fly past his head. The pieces of chalk narrowly missed the red-haired girl sitting behind him, instead hitting both eyes of the guy wearing makeup and dressed in a black cat-like suit behind her. Instead though, both erasers bounced off her head, leaving a cloud of chalk dust hanging in the air over her, with visible chalk marks on her hair. The movement though had caused Naruto to wake up. Blinking and rubbing his eyes out he said, huh, what did I miss? Ibiki focused on Naruto. You know, falling asleep in this situation is not really a responsible thing. So, not like I was hearing anything important, just empty sounding words. Ibiki did not show it, but he scowled on the inside as he watched many of the genin that were about to call it quits settle back down in their seats. Fine, he said, if that is what you wish, then you all. An. Should I end it here? Nah, don't want you people hunting me down. Welcome to Training Grounds 44, or more lovingly known as the Forest of Death. Yelled out a strong female voice to the mass of participating genin. Mere moments ago, Ibiki had told them that they had passed. The test was specifically designed to force the participants to cheat. To discover information about a target could be a mission assigned to a Chunin, not to get caught in the process. The consequences for getting caught could be very severe. Ibiki removed his bandana as he said this, showing the genin his head. Quite a few recoiled at the sight. The very top of his head was nothing but a mass of scars and holes that had healed shut. As he retied the bandana on his head, a bowl crashed through the window, emanating smoke that blocked the entire front of the room from view. As the smoke cleared, a large dark brown was displayed for all to read. The proctor for the second exam. Anko Mitarashi, sexy and single. The woman that was standing next to the banner, obviously being the woman named on the banner, wore very little in the way of cover. Her legs were uncovered for all to see up to her knees, the rest of her shins covered in guards, wearing shinobi sandals. A tan miniskirt barely reached the middle of her thigh. Underneath her tan jacket, all she wore was a fishnet shirt, both only covering the most sensitive areas of her obviously large breasts. Her purple hair was up in a way reminiscent of one particular ninja that had been unable to attend. You must be getting soft on me, Ibiki, the woman spoke. 28 teams are passing. Ibiki was quick to respond as always. Anko, you are early. We just have a really good bunch this year. No matter, the now confirmed Anko replied in a snotty manner. By the time I'm done with them, they will be cut down by at least half. This statement once more set the remaining genin into a state of awareness and fright. Now follow sexy little me to the next training area. Naruto narrowed his eyes in the direction of the forest and kept his mouth shut as Anko began to explain the test. Now, the next test is a survival course with the objective to get 2 scrolls to the tower that lies directly in the center of the forest. You will need both scrolls, one of earth and one of heaven, as well as the entirety of your team to enter the tower, holding one of each stated scrolls into the air. Now there was one problem with this motion, for it was revealed that Anko wore nothing to keep her large breasts in place, so they were free to bounce around as they pleased. So most pairs of eyes belonging to a male, as well as some females, were focused on the large of mounds that, to their perspective, were moving in many directions in slow motion. Anko realized this and smirked. Sorry boys and girls, but there is nothing for you to see that you will ever be able to have. A male voice resounded throughout the crowd. Seen better. That one statement destroyed the smirk that was once on Anko's face. She narrowed her eyes in the direction of the voice. Now, most of the crowd that was in the direction she faced was male, instantly parting ways the moment she looked at them. The only one not to move was Naruto. You say something, blondie? Anko snarled. Naruto smirked at the woman, who began to stalk forward in his direction. Yeah. I said that I have seen better. After a brief few seconds of tense silence as Anko, who stood almost as tall as Naruto himself, tried to intimidate the genin in front of her with the nastiest glare she could create. His reaction. I have seen scarier things than that. And you are supposed to be a jounin. Anko snapped. Pulling a kunai from who knows where, the woman attempted to open Naruto's throat. What she had not seen coming was her arm stopped before it even went halfway, leg sweeping hers out from underneath her, a strong arm holding her at the waist, barely a foot off the ground. You know, your eyes are really pretty this close. Naruto's deep blue eyes meeting Anko's dark gray hair. Anko knew not why, but she could not stop the blush that grew on her face. Without even blinking she replaced herself with a log, reappearing in front of the group of genin. Now she said, forcing her blush down as she watched Naruto straighten himself back up, we will be passing around waiver forms, which absolve Konoha in all ways in case you die during this exam. As stated, your objective is to reach the tower in the center of the forest, but the one thing that I did not mention was the time limit you have for this exam. The genin all inched closer, many having finished reading over and signing the waiver forms and handing them back to the proctor assistants. You have 5 days, Anko said, with a serious face plaster on, the fun play acting mood she used gone with a slight breeze. 5 days, to get to that tower. If you do so with both scrolls, you will have moved on to the next part of the exam. Just like the previous portion, you have to still have all 3 of your teammates alive when you enter the tower to actually pass, even if you had both scrolls. And just like the last exam also, there is a special rule just for this portion. You are not allowed to open either of them. And before anyone asks, there is a surprise if you do. Now, as Anko used the word surprise, a small yet lethal smile grew on her face, one that gave the same reaction to the genin when they saw Ibiki's sadistic smirk. Once you receive one of the scrolls, a Chunin will tell you which gate is yours to enter the forest with. Good luck and please do not die that quickly. And with that final note, Anko turned and leapt into the forest. As Team 7 stopped in front of Gate 34, a voice came over the loudspeaker. "Well kiddies, it's time to play. The exam starts in less than 1 minute. Make peace with whichever god you worship, for you may not make it out alive." And soon after, the gate snapped open. 3 tops, day 1 of second exam. Anko watched in silence as quite a few genin teams moved far underneath her position, crossing it seconds after the previous team did so. But that was not what was on her mind. How Anko thought, a snarl being emitted from her lips. How can that little shit affect me the way he did? I swear that my heart stopped. She leaned her back against the trunk of the tree and slipped down till she felt the bottom of the large branch. Pulling out a bag, she reached in and pulled out a stick of dango and began to slowly munch on it as her thoughts took a turn. He was speaking truly, though, she thought, losing the angry look in her eyes. Everything he said was true, at least to him, but still, why was affected like a teenager experiencing her first crush. Finishing the first stick, she tossed it against a tree, finishing the image that adorned the Konoha headband. The bag drifted away in the wind, empty. She then stood and turned to the north and placed her hands on her wide hips. I guess it's a mystery to solve later. Wait, why does the paunch fell empty? That son of a forest clearing, day 1 of second exam. Be what? Reverberated a clearly angry female. Relax, Akura, was the calm response. The girl's scream. I saw an opportunity and took it. Remember, in the first exam we had to cheat, so I figured. But what if she comes to hunt you down? Relax, we have the 2 scrolls and a spare. Naruto responded, in either hand resting a scroll. Besides, she is not allowed to intervene directly like that in the exam, you know that. Sasuke scowled a short distance away from his teammates, his arms crossed. He had enough. Both of you shut up and let's move. The other 2/3 of the team did not say a word as they began to follow their teammate in the direction of the tower, not even gazing at their apparent surroundings. That in the end caused several, very serious problems. A sudden wind gust erupted out of nowhere, so powerful that the trees themselves became uprooted from their positions. Considering that TC's trees were close to 8 feet thick and close to 200 tall, which was no small feat. As a result, the team was scattered. Unknown location, day 1 of second exam. Damn it, that hurt. Naruto pulled himself out of the tree trunk that had slammed into, straightening himself out slowly. Speaking in a whisper, Naruto said, "Wonder what is us?" Stretching his arms skyward, that was no ordinary wind, way beyond ordinary. His train of thought would have continued if not for the scream that reverberated among the trees. Unknown location, day 1 of second exam. Kurai. Yelled a dark-skinned genin from Kumo, dressed in a simple maroon jacket and black shirt, black pants and common shinobi sandals. He had a simple sword in his hand while his other held a kunai, the remains of a lollipop at his feet, a scared glance at his female teammate. His other teammate, Samui, dressed in a dark blue top and black kanoichi pants that hugged her legs like gloves, blonde hair stopping at the base of her skull with longer pieces that framed her face, stood ready to pounce in and save her teammate, even if she knew not how she would do that. HLP came the struggling voice of a young girl encased in sand. Her rosy lips and the area of dark skin around her mouth the only thing visible, slowly disappearing into the sand, covered soon after. "Let her go." Amoy yelled, facing the one that controlled the sand. Standing with his hands outstretched, a mad look in his red eyes, stood Gara no Sabaku. Wearing a dark brown jumpsuit with plain brown pants and simple sandals, he stared at the Kumo team, his eyes wide as he scanned the other 2 before him with reckless abandon. "Mother wants blood, lots of blood, all your blood, all your blood." Ending with a yell, which seemed to make his own teammates, one dressed in a black cat suit wearing some sort of face paint, the other wearing a black miniskirt and a light purple top with a white vest-like shirt on top of that, a large piece of rectangular metal trapped to her back finished the picture. "Gara, that's enough," spoke the female sand ninja, "let her go." "Don't bother Tamari, Gara is not listening," spoke the guy in the cat suit. "But can't Kuro?" Before a reply could be formed, the sadistic smile that had been present on Gara's face the entire time began to grow wider, the blood vessels in his eyes were painfully visible. "Blood, mother wants your blood now." Sand burial. The 4 surrounding genin watched as a burst of pressure spread from the sand to Gara's feet and raced down the sand in the direction of the sphere that encased the girl known as Kurai. Samui stood, her pale green eyes opened wide as she watched frozen, barely hearing Amoy's screams of rage as her teammate and close friend was about to die and there was nothing she could do. All that she could do, as she fell to her knees, allowing tears to fall from her face to the dry forest floor, wondering since when had she been so weak to let one of her closest friends die without a fight. Yet, with that thought in mind, she still could not move, still could not blink. The breeze was light as time seemed to slow down to a crawl, the tree leaves blowing slowly in the wind, and the sound of beating wings of the birds came closer and closer to where they were. She then heard a strong, yet quiet phrase, as if a whisper was spoken right next to her ear. Sunlance burst. Time resumed, the wind blowing with a furious amount of force that sent the standing genin other, then Gara back a few inches. Just as the visible force of pressure was about to meet the ball of sand that was encasing Kurai, a spark of golden light appeared in Kurai's vision to her right. For whatever reason, she turned to face the light and thanked Kami that she did not blink, for in that very instant, a beam of yellow light, and familiar almost to the tip of an arrow, sped past her. Whipping her head back in the direction Kurai, she watched as the beam impacted the sphere of sand, emerging the other side, just before the pressure of sand met the base of the sphere. Amoy seemed to have gone silent as the beam of light vanished into the trees not too far away, visible speeding skyward and vanishing above the tree tops. "There's Gara," said in childlike wonder. "No blood, why is there no blood?" Kurai Amoy spoke out sadly, thinking the worst. "So that her name?" spoke a voice from above the genin, all of the genin but Gara looking up. There on a branch stood Naruto, decked out in his dragoon armor, holding a wide-eyed and shaking, dark-skinned Kurai in his arms, the remains of her cloths barely preserving her modesty. Without even thinking, both Amoy and Samui were standing next to him, Amoy holding his sword, parallel to Naruto's throat. "Put her down slowly," Amoy slowly spoke out. Naruto slowly put the shaking girl down, who was instantly scooped up in Samui's arms. "Blood, mother wants blood, I want blood, 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 blood." This got the attention of the genin, noticing the sudden rush the other two sand ninjas left in. But that was not their biggest worry, as the sand began to build up all around Gara's frame. Soon the top half of Gara's body was covered in sand, making the genin look like a monster, a visible mouth and face of sand, teeth, and a mad gleam in the red eyes still visible from close to 10 feet away. Gara's arms now resembled trunks of sand, ending in smooth claw-like buildup, with his favorite word resounding throughout the small clearing. "Blood." Though was all Naruto said. "I'll take care of him." The Kumo genin did not need more of an incentive and were soon gone, Samui casting a worried look over her shoulder as the distance grew between both blondes. Naruto stared at the crazed boy below him. Gara stared up at the blonde boy and roared in rage, stretching his claw-like arms, launching them like missiles. Naruto smirked and dived off the tree, while drawing his swords, he slashed as the arms flew by, Naruto flying between them, leaving long cuts in the sand that oozed a brown substance. Flying down closer and closer to Gara, Naruto prepared for what he would face. One of the strongest demons the world had ever known. Blood. What if Naruto has golden dragon bloodline? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.